Chapter 926, False Charges. Chapter 926, False Charges. I knew it. In the distance, Li Weiwei waved her fist excitedly. She had guessed that Ling Han's battle prowess might have reached 23 stars of Shattering Void tier. Thus, with the advantage of an additional 2 stars, he could easily suppress his opponent. Ji Yuner was also shocked. She had thought that the battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier was already invincible in this realm, and 21 stars was practically a myth, but not only had 2 such people appeared today, one of them was even killed on the spot by a single strike. Could it be that Ling Han was actually at the level of the Mountain River tier? Bar! Luo Kaifeng rushed out like a gust of wind, his expression twisted, looking like he was going to devour someone. Luo Ba was the strongest genius of the Luo clan in 100 years, so the clan had spent enormous effort in obtaining a Blooders Stone for him to refine. This would be beneficial even for cultivators of the Sun Moon tier and Mountain River tier. But now, Luo Ba was killed by a single swat like a fly. How could he accept this? His eyes were bloodshot as he shouted, "How dare you? You dare to commit murder within the academy? I will kill you." He reached out blatantly, one palm open, and made a clapping motion towards Ling Han. When a cultivator of the Sun Moon tier attacked, even if he was only at the minor levels, how terrifying would his power be? If Ling Han were to take the hit, he would definitely be crushed to death. How could his body of level 1 godly metal withstand the almighty attack from a cultivator of the Sun Moon tier? Really too shameless. Li Weiwei was stomping her feet in the distance, yet she was powerless, standing too far away to block the attack. Ji Yuner also furrowed her long, shapely eyebrows, but consoled Li Weiwei, "Rest assured, the elites of the academy won't let him mess around." True enough, when Luo Kaifeng made his move, both Zhang Deman and Wei Qianshu also moved at the same time and intercepted him, saying, "Brother Luo, please control yourself." The two of them had joined forces, and naturally blocked Luo Kaifeng's attempted attack with ease. Ling Han appeared calm. He did not feel even the slightest bit of nervousness. This was the academy. If Luo Kaifeng was allowed to commit murder here, that would really be a joke. There had to be other elites at the higher levels of the Sun Moon tier, or even at the level of perfection thereof, who were quietly monitoring the academy and could make their move at any time. It was just that there was no need for them to show themselves earlier. Ling Han put away the pile of true origin stones on the ground. This was his stake earned from the bet. It was a pity that Luo Ba's body couldn't be taken away by him. There ought to be a lot of good stuff inside his spatial spirit tool. This brat killed a member of my Luo clan. Am I supposed to just let him go? Luo Kaifeng sneered. He was well aware that he couldn't kill Ling Han on the spot, but deliberately put up a front of uncontrollable anger in order to prepare for the excuse which he would later give. Old foxes like him might be impulsive, but would also promptly settle down. The instant that he'd rushed out, he had already thought of an idea. Zhang Deman humphed and said, "This was a duel to death. Both sides had agreed to it. If one party had died in battle, then that person could only blame himself for being inferior in strength. That's not what happened here." Luo Kaifeng shook his head and said solemnly, "Before, I had clearly heard that Luo Ba said, 'Please stop,' and I concede defeat. But the evil brat neither cared nor acknowledged it and insisted on striking out. This doesn't conform to the rules of a duel to death." Fuck. When the others heard the words of Luo Kaifeng, all of them cursed inwardly. They had all seen plenty of shameless people, but never one so shameless. Was this person truly an elite of the Sun Moon tier? How could he be so shameless? Luo Ba was killed on the spot by Ling Han with a single blow, so how would there be any time for him to admit defeat? In fact, Luo Kaifeng couldn't care less. For people like he who had achieved such a high status, would he bother with the views of others? If he was unhappy, he could directly suppress and kill anyone. "How come I didn't hear anything?" Zhang Deman queried, feeling displeased. "Then one could only say that the cultivation of Brother Zhang is still lacking slightly," Luo Kaifeng said laughingly. He looked over at Wei Qianshu with a cool gaze. Brother Wei must have heard it, right? Wei Qianshu felt shocked. The other party's sentence was full of threats. If he said no, then it would be directly going against the Luo clan. He himself was fearless. Even though he did not have any powerful backing, he had reached the height of his current cultivation based on his own strength. However, it did not mean that he had no descendants. It wasn't as if he did not know about Luo clan's conduct. They would do anything. Which was more important, conscience or family? Was a cultivator from a small world more important than his own family? Wei Qianshu sighed inwardly, saying, I seem to have heard Luo Ba said concede defeat. He used the two words I seemed, so as to leave some leeway for himself. Zhang Deman was seething with anger. This was really too shameless. But, like Wei Qianshu, he was also a lone cultivator without any powerful backing to support him. In his heart, he was aware that if the Luo clan wished to manipulate the outcome at any cost, they could practically twist the facts to their favor. Luo Kaifeng, you've done so many shameful deeds. Have you no fear of ghosts knocking upon your door in the middle of the night, or being unable to sleep in peace? He said in a low voice. Ha, I am a cultivator. What is there to fear? Luo Kaifeng said softly, then turned to look at Wei Qianshu. Brother Wei, this brat has violated the rules of the academy. I suppose he ought to be expelled? When everyone heard this, they all thought that Luo Kaifeng was ruthless indeed. Without the protection of Scarlet Heaven Academy, what was Ling Han? Any person at the level of the Mountain River tier could kill him at any time. Ling Han remained calm and collected. Could the Luo clan really hide the truth from the masses within Scarlet Heaven Academy? Wei Qianshu was put in an extremely difficult position. This Luo Kaifeng not only just dragged him into a messy affair, but also intended to make him an accomplice in his sinister plan all the way. But he had already been untrue to his own convictions earlier, so now there was already no way out for him. Otherwise, he would get in trouble at both sides of the fence. He clenched his teeth and was just about to open his mouth when he saw a white shadow flash past him. On the shoulder of Ling Han, there sat a big white cat. There was nothing strange about cats. Within the imperial capital, there was quite a number of people rearing demon tigers, such as the precious flame blue pattern tiger and the ice genesis tiger, while some could even reach the level of the mountain river tier. In contrast, the cat in front was just at the level of the shattering void tier. The problem was that everyone in the academy knew that there was one cat that couldn't be provoked. Luo Kaifeng was also stumped for words. Of course, he knew that Lord Academy Head had a cat he spoilt to no end. Whoever dared to touch this cat would be destroyed by him. But this cat actually crouched upon Ling Han's shoulder. What was the meaning of this? Just a coincidence? Or could it be? He couldn't help but shudder. If Ling Han had the backing of an elite of the heavenly body tier, then even if the entire Luo clan were to band together, they would be absolutely no match for the other party, and could be killed with a single finger. Meow. The white cat swept his gaze across the crowd in annoyance. Don't you all know that I am already hungry, yet you all still refuse to let Ling Han go home to prepare a meal for me? At this moment, Ling Han gave a faint smile and said, I am about to be driven out of the academy, right? Then, big white cat, you will come along with me henceforth, and have all the meat that you can eat. Meow. The big white cat nodded arrogantly. A demon beast of the shattering void tier would certainly be intelligent. Thus, it was not at all strange for it to have such a human-like reaction. However, both Luo Kaifeng and Wei Qianshu were scared out of their wits. If they were to allow Ling Han to abduct the big white cat, who would bear the consequences in the event Lord Academy Head was to discover this and flip out? Lord Cat, come over here. I have plenty of delicious food too, Luo Kaifeng said hastily. Since Ling Han could use food to tempt this demon cat, then why couldn't he use the same trick? The big white cat became agitated with anger. Did he really think that I'm just a gluttonous cat? That I would side with anyone that gave me food? If it weren't for this human called Ling Han, who had a humble enough and sincere attitude, given this Lord Cat's arrogance no pride, would I have agreed to befriend him? Just who do you think you are? Chapter 9:27 Deal. Chapter 9:27 Deal. Meow. The big white cat purred before charging out at Luo Kaifeng. Its speed was very swift, and there was practically none in the shattering void tier who could compare to it. But who was the opponent here? A sun-moon tier cultivator. In that case, naturally it would not pose any threat to Luo Kaifeng. But the problem was Luo Kaifeng dared not strike back, and merely kept dodging its attacks. An elite of the sun-moon tier was actually being chased around in circles by a shattering void tier individual. Probably only this demon cat was capable of achieving such a feat. After chasing for a while, the big white cat jumped back onto Ling Han's shoulder and arrogantly combed through its whiskers while unsheathing its claws. Its expression was implying, "Which one of you dares to bully my people? I will not let you off lightly." Zhang Deman could not hold back the hearty laughter that escaped him. Who would have thought that Ling Han would become friends with this big white cat that none could afford to offend? He coughed, choking back his laugh as he said, "I still stand by my views." Luoba did not verbally admit defeat, therefore Ling Han is not at fault. If there are no further opinions from the two of you, then just let Ling Han go back. What more could Luo Kaifeng say? That beast was Academy Head's favorite pet, and his affection towards it had even surpassed his affection for his own descendants. Even if it were the elders of the Luo clan here today, they would also have to yield. He gave a resentful humph, picked up the pieces Luoba's body, and stored it into the spatial spirit tool. His figure leaped, leaving immediately. Wei Qianshu sighed again. Just now, he'd been put in a difficult situation. He shook his head, and also leaped and left. Many thanks to Senior for speaking up justly. Ling Han spoke in all sincerity, clasping his hands in the direction of Zhang Deman. Zhang Deman guffawed heartily and said, "Even if I did not intervene, with this cat around, nobody would dare to even touch you in the entire academy." The big white cat raised its head proudly. "I am that formidable." "I still have to thank you, Senior," Ling Han insisted. Zhang Deman nodded his head. This young man had a sense of propriety, observed etiquette, and had a pretty good disposition. Talent in martial arts was one thing, but one's disposition was also similarly vital. Otherwise, one would only become a danger to others in the future. "Go on," he smilingly said. A student dying meant that there were bound to be some loose ends to be tied, but that had nothing to do with Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and clasped his hands once more as he said, "This student shall then beg my leave." Bringing the big white cat with him, he left. This guy, it was already on more than one occasion it was scratching his head. "Don't you know that I am hungry?" After Ling Han left, the spectators that had gathered to watch the fight naturally dispersed. There was big news now. Ling Han's battle prowess had already surpassed 21 stars of shattering void tier. "Big brother Yi." Emo Junrin gave Yi Chengyuan a light pat. Yi Chengyuan was in a daze, his body drenched in a cold sweat as he suddenly turned around and uttered, "I kept on thinking, supposed I were in Luoba's shoes, how would I counter that strike?" The conclusion was, it would be an imminent death no matter what. Emo Junrin couldn't help laughing as he responded, "Brother Yi, you could also choose not to spar with that maniac." Yi Chengyuan's eyes immediately brightened as he said, "Right? I have already cultivated to the ultimate of the shattering void tier. With my talent, if I do not possess some kind of exceptional fated opportunity, I would not be able to advance a step further and break through to the battle prowess of 22 stars. But if I break through to the mountain river tier, then I will again have room to elevate myself further. Yes, that is why we only spend 100 years to reach battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier. Although this maximum limit is very important, it is definitely not the most important," Emo Junrin continued. "One has to first become an immortal too. Only then would one be considered really powerful." Yi Chengyuan breathed out a long sigh in relief as his self-confidence completely returned. He said, "Junrin, you are way smarter than you let on." "Am I?" Emo Junrin let out a laugh. "I am but a romantic person who enjoys playing with the flowers. At a certain place." "Despicable old witch, let Nyo out." Yowling sounds resembling beast cries rang out, followed by drum-like raps on the doors of the room. "Nyo wants to see Ling Han, you ugly old woman. quickly let Nyo out. Nyo's entire body was leaning on the door, her small hand clutching onto the lintel of the door. She looked just like a monkey. Nonsense. The old lady garbed in black robes grabbed at empty air, and Nyo was immediately drawn over without even the slightest resistance. Nyo is very angry. Nyo wants to become bad. Nyo no longer wants to cultivate. Nyo puffed out her cheeks and put both hands on her waist. You little girl, which day have you been serious in cultivating ever since returning to the Rock Palace? The black-robed old lady sighed. Iyun only infused the soul essence of martial arts into your body. How much you can refine and digest still depends largely on your own efforts. Nyo doesn't want to cultivate. Nyo wants to see Ling Han. Nyo was not about to listen to reason, and became even more oblivious to fear as she glared right back at the old lady. The black-robed old lady got a big headache. Only the Imperial Empress could cultivate the 3 supreme secret techniques of the mythological beast palace, because only their milady could inherit the unique soul essence of martial arts. Even with the mystical arts in front of you, you would achieve nothing if you weren't her and didn't possess the foundation. Why did they encounter such an unreliable successor? She had been with Nyo for more than a year, and also came to have a considerable understanding of this lass, knowing that being fierce did not work on Nyo, for she did not even know what fear was. All right, I promise you, as long as you could cultivate to the Genesis tier, I will allow you to go and see that guy, but only for 3 days at most, after which you must return. Our Rock Palace has a great enemy, and only if you have cultivated the 3 great secret techniques would you be able to oppose them. Not letting you out is also for the sake of your own safety. The old lady offered a compromise. Nyo counted on her fingers and said, Fine, then Nyo is going to use 3 years to cultivate to the Genesis tier. She leaned her head sideways and looked at the old lady as she said, Rotten old lady, quickly go away. Your presence here only fuels my anger, and it's making me lose the mood to cultivate. The black-robed old lady could not refrain from shaking her head. She was also someone on the level of the overlord of her territory, yet facing Nyo, she just could not muster up even the slightest bit of a temper, which showed that everyone had their weakness. Go on, don't hinder Nyo's cultivation. Nyo waved her hand, her face filled with impatience. The black-robed old lady helplessly left, but at least now Nyo was finally willing to cultivate properly, letting her breathe a sigh of relief. This little ancestor was really a big headache. Nevertheless, unexpectedly a genius had emerged in that small world. It was not apparent what was so particularly special about that human, but the fact remained that his son really was a prodigy of martial arts. Were it not for the fact that Rock Palace did not take in male disciples, she really would not have wanted to let the chance slip by. The Heavenly Saint Palace is currently taking in new disciples, and they have always been on quite good terms with our Rock Palace. Offering them a prodigy as successor would definitely make them utterly grateful. Just nice. We'll be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. She swiftly decided. The Luo clan residence. Luo Hongdao stared fixedly at Luo Ba's body, both his hands clenched tightly as the flames of fury flared in his eyes. The most outstanding successor among the Luo family's younger generation was killed just like that. Although grooming a shattering void-tier cultivator did not really require that big a sacrifice, the blood-tier stone was truly precious, and even the thought of it caused him heartache. We absolutely cannot let that lowlife off the hook, he uttered harshly. But, Lord Patriarch, that fellow seemed to have some kind of relationship with Fu Hui, Luo Kaifeng said. Shivers ran through his body at the mention of Fu Hui's name, just as if the name of an elite of the heavenly body tier possessed some kind of magical power. Chapter 928, Father-in-law wants to see me. Chapter 928, Father-in-law wants to see me. Humph, he's merely on very affectionate terms with a cat, Luo Hongdao spat disdainfully. Yes. Luo Kaifeng promptly nodded in agreement. Still, it is hard to make a move in the academy. Luo Hongdao scrunched his eyebrows in a frown, though the frown disappeared just as quickly. Then, he said, we do not have to worry about that. Lord Patriarch means? Luo Kaifeng asked in bafflement. Go to Dark Knight Hall and put up an announcement, offering a reward of 10,000 true origin stones for that scum's life. Luo Hongdao commanded coldly. Dark Knight Hall was an organization of assassins. As long as one was willing to pay, they would dare to kill anyone. This organization was very big, with branches in the 3 majestic empires and dozens of royal empires, but no one knew the whereabouts of its headquarters, who the leader was, and what kind of power he possessed. In short, even the 3 majestic empires wanted to wipe out this organization, but have never succeeded. 10,000 true origin stones for the head of a shattering void tier cultivator. This was too high a value for that lowlife. Luo Kaifeng sneered. But, in this way, Ling Han would unequivocally become a dead man. Could an organization as formidable as the Dark Knight Hall fail to kill a mere shattering void tier cultivator? Even if they dared not enter the Scarlet Heaven Academy, it was impossible that Ling Han would remain inside his entire life. As for when Ling Han came out, it was not necessary for them to keep watch. Hereafter, it would be the Dark Knight Hall's business.
Yes.
Luo Kaifeng nodded. After Ling Han and the big fat cat returned to the courtyard, he roasted some meat to fill his and the cat's stomach, then continued with his secluded cultivation and immersed himself in the 7-kill subduing soul technique. After another 5 days, he was finally able to attain a little success and could wield it preliminarily. He stood in the middle of the courtyard and stared intently at a stone. Suddenly, his eyes shone, and a sword light shot out from between his brows. Bang! It struck the stone, and it was smashed into smithereens. This secret technique is not only as simple as an assault on the spirit. Rather, it also has quite a terrifying destructive effect on material existence. However, specifically what extent it can reach still depends on what level one could cultivate the secret technique to, and the strength of one's own spirit, Ling Han appraised. The impact of this assault on the spirit could be real and spiritual. In reality, it could deal damage to one's physique, while spiritually, it could attack one's spirit. Its uses were infinite. Ling Han could not contain his joy. With the additional support of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, his spirit was incomparably tough, which could maximize the power of this secret technique. He reckoned it did not even occur to Old Man Su that this secret technique would help him so much after he had cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Pong, pong, pong. A knocking came from the door, and he went over to open it. Standing prettily at the door was the delicate Shui Yinyu, her seductively luscious and mature figure giving off a profoundly stirring temptation, a real test of one's control. Furthermore, with Ling Han's ample imagination, it did not take much for him to clearly know how tempting the tender body that lay hidden beneath the seemingly loose and long dress was. Sensing the heat from Ling Han's ardent gaze, Shui Yinyu's lovely face was tinted with a becoming blush. She then immediately relayed, "My father wants to see you." "Father-in-law wants to see me?" Ling Han mumbled. This was not that strange. He and Shui Yinyu did already make a pledge to be married, so it would be weird if there was no response from the bride's family. Now that he was being summoned after such a long delay, it was considered a bit too late already. Probably, the Shui clan also thought this was merely a rumor, but when Shui Yinyu was called and questioned, they then knew it was not that simple. Shui Yinyu's face then turned cold as she said, "Don't even think you can take advantage of me. I say, although we are false lovers, we should also look the part, right?" Ling Han said laughingly. "Now there's nobody here. There's no need to act," Shui Yinyu refused frostily. Ling Han sighed and added, "A few days ago, while I was in a duel to death with someone, you did not even deign to drop by to take a look at me. Are you not afraid that others will say that you did not show enough concern? Wouldn't the act be seen through sooner, then? With your strength, even if there is 100 of Luoba, how could it be possible to harm a single strand of your hair?" Shui Yinyu humphed. It was not like she had not sparred with Ling Han before. Even she could hardly kill Ling Han, and instead was bitten on her. "Pay!" Ling Han let out a laugh, and replied, "All right, then let's go meet him. Who knows, maybe I can even get a red packet one." "Oh, right. be it being fake and considered a pretense. If I do get a red packet, then it's mine. You cannot make me return it. Shui Yinyu shook her head, then countered. As far as being able to have marriage ties with the Zhao clan is concerned, my clan's thoughts on the matter have been very much inclined towards enthusiasm. So, during this meeting, be prepared. You will probably be under great pressure. Luckily, you're one of the left minister's men, so even if your level is low, my clan also would not dare to do anything to you. After all, before one beat the dog, one also has to see who the master is. Ling Han couldn't help a twitch in the corner of his mouth. He responded, "What do you mean before one beat the dog one also has to see who the master is? Can't you use nicer words? Also, there's a saying that if you marry a chicken, you should follow the chicken. If I am a dog, you're not any better." Whoosh! A sword was swiftly held at Ling Han's neck as Shui Yinyu coldly declared, "Spout any more nonsense and I will kill you." Ling Han remained unmoved and continued, "Are you going to murder your husband?" Shui Yinyu glanced at Ling Han for a moment, then retrieved the sword and tucked it away. Well, she did say that after Ling Han died, she would remain his widow her whole life, so in a way, Ling Han was indeed her husband. Why did she never realize that this fellow also had such a shameless side too? Come with me. She was disinterested in putting up further with Ling Han's nonsense. She wanted to save herself further frustration of being annoyed by this guy. As the two went out, Shui Yinyu had initially intended to walk in front. However, Ling Han persistently proceeded to walk by her side. Furthermore, he was very close. Just when she was at her limit and was about to lash out, she heard Ling Han's soft words as he moved close to her ear and mumbled, "Senior sister, don't forget. Once we're out through the door, there are many eyes watching us." His warm breath caressed her face and neck, drawing an immediate rose-colored flush on her cheeks. It was an irresistibly enchanting sight to behold. No man had ever been this close to her, making her get a bout of goosebumps. Previously, Ling Han's surprise attack on her breast had made her brain immediately cease operating. In a daze, she was not even aware that her hand was held by Ling Han, and she was being led. She only felt that she was stepping on cotton beneath her feet, a feeling light and fluffy and akin to strolling on a blanket of clouds atop the mountain peak. Which direction are we heading in? They went out through the courtyard's entrance. It was only after Ling Han posed that question that she suddenly came back to herself and hastily flung Ling Han's hand aside. She glared furiously at Ling Han and chided, "Even if it were a pretense of affection, there's no need for holding hands, right? You did it on purpose." "Just now, I saw Zhao Luan's subordinates," Ling Han said, signaling in the direction behind them. "And?" Shui Yinyu was surprised. She had really been distracted. "Let's go." Ling Han once again drew Shui Yinyu's hand into his grasp. This time, Shui Yinyu did not refuse and let him hold her hand. However, she couldn't prevent a reflexive blush from inadvertently creeping upon her beautiful face again. So captivating was her loveliness that even ascetics would feel turmoil in their hearts. Ling Han glanced back behind them, and a smiling expression unfolded on his face. If he made up his mind to do something, then he had to do it flawlessly. "Zhao Luan, you want to get a good look? In that case, I will let you see clearly and have a stimulating view." Shui Yinyu barely kept it together as she calmed down while being led by Ling Han all the way. Less than an hour later, they came in front of a manor. Shui Clan, a 5th-tier clan. Chapter 929. You are going to be a grandfather. Chapter 929. You are going to be a grandfather. A 5th-tier clan couldn't be underestimated. Being included in the 9 tiers of clans in the imperial capital meant that they were influential, possessing an esteemed status in society that would make other people look up to them. The ancestor of the Shui clan was an elite whose cultivation had reached the middle levels of the Sun-Moon tier. He was said to have reached the late stage of the middle levels, and was expected to go towards the peak. However, it ought to be impossible for him to reach the higher levels. After all, time and tide waited for no manha didn't have that long to live. The present patriarch of the Shui clan was a 6th-ranked official of the Majestic Empire, and also the biological father of Shui Yinyu. His cultivation had also reached the minor levels of the Sun-Moon tier. In the future, it would be likely that he would take over the responsibility of guarding the Shui clan from their ancestor. 8 guards had lined up at the main doors, all of whom were at the level of the Shattering Void tier. Within the entire imperial capital, probably aside from the Empress, other forces wouldn't be qualified to have cultivators of the Mountain River tier serve as guards, as it would be a huge waste of financial resources. Secondly, it would also be too conspicuous. How would the Empress view such a person? With Shui Yinyu leading the way, they naturally entered the Shui clan's manor with ease. They walked towards the study where the patriarch of the Shui clan would be found. "You mustn't let the cat out of the bag," Shui Yinyu whispered to him before entering. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Rest assured, I will be by your side to help." Shui Yinyu stressed again. "That would really be a huge help for me," Ling Han replied with a smile. Shui Yinyu took a deep breath. Then, she pushed open the door and walked in first. "Father," she called out softly. Inside the study, there was only a middle-aged man sitting upright and reading a book. Hearing her, he looked up and swept his gaze over both Shui Yinyu and Ling Han. He then nodded. "You may leave first," he said to Shui Yinyu. Shui Yinyu was stunned for a moment. She was about to open her mouth to speak when the man glared at her. At that moment, she could only take her leave obediently. Ling Han caught her eyes momentarily, with an expression that meant, "You just said a while ago that you would stay by my side and support me. How could you abandon me in the blink of an eye?" Shui Yinyu glanced at him. He could still make cutting remarks at a time like this? Just what was his heart made of? It was really too tough. She walked out of the entrance and closed the door behind her. The patriarch of the Shui clan was called Zijie did not speak or even bother to look at Ling Han. Instead, he picked up his book and continued reading. At this moment, Ling Han was observing the other party. This middle-aged man was really too handsome for words. At the very least, Ling Han knew that he was no match for the man in terms of appearance. Moreover, for a full-grown man to be born with a pair of peach blossom eyes, it would really cause others, whether male or female, be attracted to him. It seemed that Shui Yinyu had taken more after her father, as she not only inherited her father's exceptional beauty, but also the temperament. However, when these characteristics appeared on a man, it would make him appear effeminate. Yet, if they were found in a woman, her exquisiteness and allure would be bone-deep. Shui Zijie had no intention to speak at all, but the aura of an elite of the Sun-Moon tier had been set in motion. In such a situation, even an elite of the Mountain River tier would be trembling all over, and not even have the strength to stand, let alone a cultivator of the Shattering Void tier. The suppression of every level in the immortal realm was really tremendous, especially at the stage of the major cultivation tiers. It was said that even the legendary 5-star geniuses could not cross such a domain. For example, a cultivator at the peak level of perfection of the Mountain River tier would not be able to directly confront another at the minor levels of the Sun-Moon tier, not even if you were a 5-star genius. The so-called how many stars genius could only cross over the minor cultivation levels. Ling Han couldn't endure it anymore. No matter how tenacious his spirit was, it wouldn't change the fact that he was still at the level of the Shattering Void tier. But what did it matter? Ling Han directly sat down. "Since you won't talk, then fine. I'll cultivate, and we shall see who will surrender first." Seeing that Ling Han closed his eyes and began to calmly cultivate, Shui Zijie had an urge to smash the book in his hands into Ling Han's face. He had intended to intimidate Ling Han by displaying his strength, but it turned out that he had been bested by Ling Han. "You are Ling Han," he finally spoke up. "Is this a joke? You've asked your daughter to bring me here, so how could you not know who I am now?" What could be done, though? The other party was the girl's father. Ling Han stood up and respectfully said, "Yes, that is who I am." He still had to observe the necessary etiquette. Before, the other party had deliberately given him the cold shoulder, so he sat quietly and focused on cultivating. This was a kind of response and a statement. However, when an elder asked him a question, he couldn't act arrogantly. Shui Zijie could not help but be astounded. This young man was only in his 20s, and his cultivation was still at the level of the shattering void tier. Yet he knew when to advance or retreat calmly in such a dignified manner. Was this the domineering characteristic of a monarch? He felt a slight admiration towards Ling Han, but even so, he wouldn't change his mind. He said, "You are not worthy of my daughter. From today onwards, you are not allowed to see Yin again." Ling Han burst out laughing and said, "Lord Shui, you are way too arbitrary. You have the cheek to lecture me?" Shui Zij could not help but laugh. Even a man of the left minister would not be allowed to be rude to an official of the imperial court. As this involved the rights of a nation, even if Shui Zij were to subdue or kill Ling Han, the left minister also wouldn't be able to say anything. "I dare not, nor am I." Ling Han shook his head. "I am just stating a fact. Although my cultivation level is still at the shattering void tier, it won't forever remain at the shattering void tier. Didn't the 7 generals of the majestic empire also start from the shattering void tier and work their way up step by step? The same is true for the left and right ministers." "What an overconfident guy." Shui Zij humphed and said, "You dare compare yourself to these 9 lords? There is no comparison now, but it may not be the case in the future." Ling Han confidently smiled, but did not say too much, as a person ought to be modest. Yet Shui Zij did not think that he had even the slightest bit of modesty. However, speaking of potential, who in this chaotic star's majestic empire could compare to Ling Han? As strong as Luoba had been, he was also killed in a single blow. With Ling Han having a battle prowess of at least 22 stars, who could compare to him? Haha, even if there comes a day when you reach the heavenly body tier, my daughter's youth will probably have withered away by then. She can't wait, and it's also not necessary for her to wait. Shui Zij waved dismissively. "This will be the one and only warning. Do not see my daughter again. Otherwise, I will make you regret it." Ling Han smiled lightly and said, "Is father-in-law not aware that you are going to be a grandfather?" "Pooh." Shui Zij completely lost it as he directly choked in shock. This practically struck him like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. His precious daughter was actually deflowered by this young man? Not only was she deflowered, but even got pregnant with his grandson? If he were to calmly think about it, Ling Han had just arrived in the immortal realm for only a month. How could it possibly happen? But now that he was completely lost in his own thoughts on the word grandchild, he could barely think straight. "Yinyu," he roared suddenly. Shui Yinyu was waiting at the door. After hearing her name being shouted, she quickly pushed open the door and entered the room, only to see that all her father's hair was completely standing on ends while his eyes were practically spurting out fire. He had completely lost it. She couldn't help but wonder what Ling Han had said to her father that actually caused the latter to fly into such a rage. You, Shui Zij pointed at Shu Yinyu, so angry that he could not speak. Ling Han reached out and said, "Father-in-law, if you are to blame someone, blame me. Get lost. Get lost now." Shui Zij waved them away repeatedly. Now, he only wanted to be alone to digest such an astonishing piece of news. "Let's go." Ling Han pulled at Shui Yinyu and ran. Shui Yinyu couldn't make heads or tails of the situation. Only when they had left the Shui clan's manor did she ask, "What did you say to my father?" "Oh, I was afraid that he would break us up, so I said that you're already having a bun in the oven," Ling Han answered casually. "What's a bun in the oven?" Shui Yinyu asked blankly. She was still very pure, and was totally clueless on the matters between a man and woman. "Hee. What are you laughing at? Spit it out." "It means that your father is going to be a grandfather soon." Shui Yinyu was stunned for a moment before she finally recovered, and her pretty face became filled with killing intent. "Ling Han, I'm going to kill you." She began to chase Ling Han, brandishing her sword. Chapter 930, Assassin. Chapter 930, Assassin. Shui Yinyu chased Ling Han for a while, but had to admit that it was actually a very good idea. At least for now, it could silence the Shui clan. Even if the Shui clan wouldn't mind sending her off to the Zhao clan, how could General Zhao accept a daughter-in-law who was already pregnant with the child of another man? Since she decided to pretend to be a married couple with Ling Han, She had already felt a certain kind of preparation. However, preparation and getting used to it were two entirely different matters. This was the reason why she flew into a rage out of humiliation and was chasing Ling Han with killing intent. However, she eventually accepted it begrudgingly. But she was still furious, so she completely ignored Ling Han and abruptly turned to leave in a huff. Ling Han couldn't help laughing. We were already pretending to be a husband and wife. What difference would a child make? When he thought about children, he couldn't help but miss his son. Would his son still recognize him when they met again? Although he was quite confident, it would easily take more than 1,000 years for one to reach the level of the mountain river tier, and how many more years to reach the heavenly body tier? Even if he was a genius and could shorten the period by 10 times, it would take him thousands or even tens of thousands of years. At that time, his son would already be a great-great-grandfather. There was no use worrying. On the road of cultivation, one had to advance step by step. At least for now, he wouldn't be able to leave the chaotic star's majestic empire. He could only keep saving his strength while figuring out a way to go about it. However, the immortal realm was really too massive. First of all, the Rock Palace was definitely not located on the Joint Peace Planet. In that case, once things involved an intergalactic journey, it would take years to few if the journey was short, but a long journey could take decades or even centuries. Moreover, the corporeal body as such would not be able to directly cross universe. It would be useless even if he could fly by controlling the regulations of the immortal realm, as the speed would be too slow. One had to use a god tool for flying, and a high-grade one that would be able to endure long periods of flying and withstand the sudden outburst of perils in the universe at that. For example, meteoroids, black holes, and the turbulent flow of stars that could make elite immortals be consigned to eternal damnation. Upon entering the universe, there would be no room for fooling around, so one had to be fully prepared. Ling Han shook his head. It would be better to be sure and steady. He'd first advance his strength to 20 stars, and after stepping into the immortal realm, raise his cultivation level via consumption of alchemical pills. Perhaps he might be able to reproduce the miracle back in the small world and attain the level of the heavenly body tier in the shortest time. As long as he could reach the level of the heavenly body tier, he would be able to leave the chaotic star's majestic empire in a dignified manner. Being such an elite, how could he be held hostage? Ling Han felt a sudden apprehension as a strong sense of crisis arose in his heart. His spirit was extremely strong indeed, and could almost emulate one at the minor levels of the mountain river tier. Naturally, he also had a strong ability to sense danger. Swoosh, the cold tip of a blade flashed past, diagonally from the rooftop of a building straight to his chest, where his heart was located. This was a black short arrow, which exuded a terrifying coldness from the tip of the arrowhead. At this moment, Ling Han had to make judgments and choices. The power of this arrow ought to be from someone at the minor levels of the mountain river tier. He had exchanged blows with Shui Yinyu, so he was able to make such an assessment. The problem was whether this arrow was made of godly metal, and whether it could penetrate his body. He couldn't help but clench his fists. Shio! As the arrow landed, Ling Han's entire being was directly jolted until he was flung into the air. Pong! He somersaulted in the air for a few times before falling onto the ground, where blood immediately gushed out of him. Hee. A man in black clothing jumped down from the top of the building. His body was light, and he did not make even the tiniest bit of sound. Even his face was covered with a black cloth, revealing only a pair of sparkling eyes. He was merely at the level of the shattering void tier. Was I a bit too cautious? The man in black said to himself as he pulled out a short blade and walked toward Ling Han with the intention of severing Ling Han's head. As an assassin, if he didn't bring back the target's head, how could he prove that he was the one who had assassinated the target? He walked to Ling Han's side, grabbed the other party's hair, and was about to slash his blade across his neck. All of a sudden, however, he was shocked Ling Han's chest wasn't stabbed with an arrow. Being an assassin with a rich combat experience, his ability of adapting to sudden accidents was also extremely swift. He covered his entire body with origin power at once, and his right hand, which held the short blade, proceeded to slash towards Ling Han's neck. He didn't know how Ling Han had managed to escape that arrow, and even deliberately fooled and led him to a trap, but when a cultivator of the Mountain River tier came up against another of the Shattering Void tier, the latter would definitely be crushed. At such a close distance, what kind of tricks could the other party play? Even if worse came to worst, he had also used origin power to cover his entire body. Even if 1,000 cultivators of the Shattering Void tier were to simultaneously strike against him, it also wouldn't hurt him. In any case, he was already standing in the safest and most advantageous position. However, could things really be as what he had expected? Ling Han revealed a smile. Suddenly, he condensed the strength of his spirit and directed it towards the other party. 7 Kill Subduing Soul Technique. Hong. With the spiritual attack, the black man immediately showed a trace of confusion and fell unconscious. Ling Han seized this opportunity to wrap the other party with his divine sense and put him inside the black tower. Ding! It was at this moment that the short blade cut across Ling Han's neck, but inside the black tower, Ling Han was a true god. As it fell to the ground, this short blade immediately turned to powder. So what if it was made of godly metal? Ling Han suddenly had a thought and condensed the metal powder back together again. He should not to waste it, could recast it to make an arrow. Now, his strongest killing technique was the annihilating dragon star arrow, but there was a huge problem. Shooting an arrow was equivalent to shooting away a great amount of wealth. With Ling Han's current strength, the 7 Kill Subduing Soul technique would only have a momentary effect on an elite at the minor levels of the Mountain River tier. The man in black immediately regained his consciousness and could not help but sneer, "I've underestimated you. Not only are you extremely daring, your defense is so amazing that you could take one hit from my arrow but not get wounded. Hey, where's this place?" He immediately expressed shock. This place was definitely not the former alley, but some boundless grassland. It transformed? Or was this the art of illusion? Ling Han gave a slight smile. His body could naturally take a hit from a cultivator at the minor levels of the Mountain River tier. It was difficult to disperse the power from the hit, so he was flung into the air. However, he still managed to control it. When he landed on the ground, he took the opportunity to hide the arrow inside the black tower, and then used the blood of a demonic beast to replace his own blood in order to make the other party think he'd been hit. It was all brainstormed and executed in a flash. Even Ling Han was extremely satisfied. A cultivator of the Mountain River tier had been captured alive. How could he get close to the other party if he did not cause his opponent to let down his guard? Even if the 7 Kill Subduing Soul technique was effective, he also wouldn't be able to get close to the other party. By the time he'd rushed to the other party's side, the latter would already have regained consciousness. After getting hit once, it would be difficult to make the other party fall for the same trick twice. Ling Han had undoubtedly created a miracle, had captured a cultivator of the Mountain River tier, despite only being at the level of the Shattering Void tier himself. Even if he were to speak of this to anyone, no one would believe him at all. Wouldn't this be an inconceivable fantasy? It was akin to a cultivator of the body refining tier being able to kill another of the Shattering Void tier. It was simply ridiculous. You didn't just underestimate me, but practically looked down on me. Ling Han shrugged. Tell me, who sent you to kill me? And what is your identity? Haha. The man in black sneered. Was this not the biggest big joke? The other party was actually interrogating him, a Shattering Void tier cultivator? His expression turned serious, and killing intent burst from him. Cut the crap. Let me send you to hell. Chapter 931, Ninth King. Chapter 931, Ninth King. The black-robed man moved and delivered a palm strike in Ling Han's direction. Ling Han neither dodged nor ducked and allowed the other person to land a direct hit. Utterly calm, he said, "You are now in my grasp. If I want you to live, you will. If I want you to die, the only path that lies ahead of you is death." Pong. This palm strike landed solidly, but Ling Han did not take even half a step back, as if the man had just given him a light pat. How could this be? The black-robed man was so shocked he felt his hair stand on ends. This had surpassed his imagination, and he felt a fear of the unknown rise up in him. Ling Han smiled and said, "Welcome to my world." Illusion. This all must be an illusion. The black-robed man took a few consecutive steps back. He'd experienced a momentary loss of consciousness just now. It had to be in that instant that he had fallen into this trick. Everything he saw and felt now had to be false. Ling Han stretched out a hand and pressed down as he said, "Looks like I will have to deal you some serious punishment first." How strange. I am obviously not one who enjoys employing violence, so why would there always be someone to force me to do so? Hong. A huge mountain appeared and pressed down on the black-robed man. The black-robed man was abruptly and undoubtedly crushed onto the ground. The mountain was like godly metal, its weight frighteningly heavy, and the black-robed man had no choice but to employ his full effort to stand up against its weight. Yet, his whole body was staggering and on the verge of collapse. He absolutely would not be able to hold on for long. Ah! A terrible scream burst out of him as over a dozen bones in his body were instantly broken. Ling Han, meanwhile, raised his hand slightly to avoid directly crushing him to death. Ling Han waved his hand once more, and the black cloth on the black-robed man's face instantly vanished, revealing an extremely common-looking face. Walking on the streets, he belonged to the category that wouldn't even garner a second look. But one had to understand that once one had reached a mortal level in his cultivation, he would naturally bear an unearthly air, and could hence be easily differentiated from normal mortals. Strange. Ling Han's curiosity was stirred. Sitting down cross-legged on the ground, he asked, "You are an assassin, correct? You have deliberately cultivated some kind of cultivation technique that allows you to look more ordinary." The black-robed man merely yowled in pain. As an assassin, before learning assassination techniques, he had to first experience various torture, and he would only be accepted after he had successfully passed through them without breaking. It was to ensure that even if he failed his mission, he would not reveal the secrets of their organization. Although he was screaming very terribly, he did not have the slightest intention to beg for mercy. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Here, I am a real god. There are only things I haven't thought of, but none that I cannot do. If you endure so well, then I'll try out all the punishments I can think of on you." As he continued to cruelly torment the black-robed man, he continued cultivation. In any case, he could not waste the time. The black-robed man was very determined, but after half a day, he gave up. In the Black Tower, his pain was magnified 100-fold. Even using a small knife to lightly cut his skin brought him pain that sank right to his bones and straight into his spirit, causing the willpower that he was so proud of to crumble completely. "My name is Ming Yi, a junior assassin of the Dark Knight Hall," he spoke, his eyes staring straight ahead like an idiot's. Ling Han listened. So it turned out that someone had made a request to the Dark Knight Hall, giving out 10,000 true origin stones as a reward for his life. This was an incredible amount, yet it was offered only to take the life of a shattering void tier cultivator. Those in the minor levels of the mountain river tier, or even middle levels, would become restless to earn such easy money. This was practically a gift. Mengi was only a most low-ranking assassin. He naturally could not possibly know who his employer was. He had only been lucky to be the first to accept this mission. Of course, from the look of things now, his luck was actually exceptionally bad. It may be the Luo clan, or Zhaoluan, and could also possibly be the Shui clan, or it could be others who are jealous of me. Ling Han rubbed his chin and could not help but laugh. He had just arrived in the immortal realm a few days ago, yet he had already made so many enemies that he could not identify who would go so far as to hire assassins to take his life. Was this a success or a failure? It should be a success, right? As the saying goes, only a mediocre person would not garner envy. I am a genius, which is why so many want to kill me. Ling Han was very good at cheering himself up. He sent this assassin into exile in the Black Tower. Of course, he had robbed the latter of all his possessions. There was a sum of 164 true origin stones on him, 17 arrows, and a total of 7 bottles of various alchemical pills. As an elite cultivator of the mountain river tier, Why are you so poor? Ling Han shook his head. Really, even he was richer. What he did not know was that Ming had spent all his wealth on those arrows. Every one of them was forged from godly metal, and though the immortal realm did not lack godly metal, and these arrows were only forged from level 1 godly metal, they were still a very great expenditure. Added with the amount he had spent on alchemical pills, it was actually very impressive that he was still left with over 100 true origin stones. Even the Scarlet Heaven Academy only gave a genius like Ling Han a monthly allowance of 2 true origin stones as a reward. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and returned to the academy. This time, the Dark Knight Hall had failed in their assassination, but they would definitely not give up just like this. Hence, the assassin that came the next time would definitely be even more powerful. It might be a middle-level assassin, a high-level assassin, or even a copper-plated assassin. From Ming, Ling Han had understood that the Dark Knight Hall's influence was very powerful, and their branches could be found in practically every empire and city. The assassins in this assassins organization were divided into 6 ranks. From the lowest rank to the highest rank, they were junior level, middle level, high level, copper-plated, silver-plated, and gold-plated. This hierarchy was not based on the cultivation levels of the assassins, but rather the number and ability of the targets they had assassinated successfully. The more people they killed and the higher the abilities of their target, the higher the grade they would attain. In this way, they could rise through the ranks. Thus, a middle-level assassin could possibly be even stronger than a copper-plated assassin. However, ordinarily, the higher the rank of an assassin, the more powerful they would be. After all, there were few exceptions. Still, it's not a good idea to keep being hunted down, but what can I do? Ling Han scratched his head. It seemed like he really did not have any way to solve this problem, and could only try his best to be as cautious as possible. After returning to the academy, Ling Han tossed all his worries to a side and focused on cultivation. He was sure that even the Dark Knight Hall would not dare act boldly in the imperial capital. Additionally, he also had the Black Tower, so things had not reached the extent that he needed to worry about danger to his life. 3 days later, Ling Han was summoned by the left minister. The competition between the 3 empires would begin very soon, and the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire had to confirm the candidates that would participate in the arena battles. This was a grand occasion. Thus, not only was the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire conducting a selection, even the royal empires that were subordinate to their rule were sending out their respective geniuses, determined to exert their own efforts. After all, if the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire did not obtain good results, they would be embarrassed as well. This was a relationship wherein glory for one meant glory for all, and loss for one meant loss for all. Ling Han went to the left minister's residence first. Then, personally led by the left minister, they headed to the residence of the 9th king. The 9th king had the surname of Hu and the given name of Feiyun. She was one of the 9 kings of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, and her authority could be claimed to extend to all levels of society. And yet, the unbelievable fact was that this 9th king was actually only in the middle levels of the Mountain River tier. The power of the 9 kings was above even the left and right ministers and the 7 great generals, but Hu Feiyun was only in the middle levels of the Mountain River tier, so how would others be willing to submit to her authority? Because she had the protection of the Empress of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, that was how. About 700,000 years ago, the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire actually had an 8th general, and at that time, there were only 7 kings. The 7th king ranked in the last place similarly was only in the Mountain River tier, and that general had not taken her seriously. He had even taken liberties with her. In the end, the Empress of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire flew into a towering rage and directly crushed this general, with his whole clan being eliminated right afterward. From then onwards, no matter who it was, they would be respectful towards the 9 kings because the Empress had said once before that seeing the 9 kings was equivalent to seeing her. Chapter 932, Gathering of Geniuses. Chapter 932, Gathering of Geniuses. The 9th king's manor was bustling with noise and excitement. The left and right ministers, as well as the 7 great generals, had all brought their personally selected elites over. There were also some government officials that were rushing about for this reason, trying to discover talented people from all over the nation in preparation for this grand occasion that happened every decade. Additionally, the higher-ups from the various subordinate royal empires had all brought the geniuses of their own. If they could represent the chaotic star's majestic empire in the battles, it would naturally be a great honor, and if they could lead the other geniuses and help the chaotic star's majestic empire attain the first place, that would even lead to a tremendous reward from the Empress. The Empress was sacred and virtuous. Not only was she the dream lover of all, she was also a supreme idol and represented the ultimate pinnacle of cultivation and strength. Everyone had gathered inside a garden. There were many chairs temporarily arranged here, but only the higher-ups were qualified to sit, whilst those in the shattering void tier like Ling could only stand. Many people had gathered. Merely shattering void tier cultivators numbered over 100. In the end, though, only 10 could represent the chaotic star's majestic empire in the upcoming contest, so the competition was extremely fierce. Li Weiwei had come as well. Naturally, she was here just to enjoy the excitement. However, because of her high status, endless people approached her to strike up a conversation. If they could marry the daughter of the left minister, they would achieve meteoric success in the later half of their lives. Ling found a rock to sit down on in a corner, his eyes slightly closed. He was circulating the 6 techniques return to 1 to absorb the spiritual qi in the air. Although the effect of this kind of cultivation was not the best, he needed to make every second count. Wasting the slightest bit of time would be despicable. Ha ha ha, with Yang Zi, here, our chaotic star's majestic empire would definitely be able to get the first place this time round. A young man with a sturdy build announced loudly, appearing to be filled with confidence. Who is he? Someone on the sidelines asked. Oh, just a country bumpkin from the Black Flame Nation. Still, his ability is quite extraordinary as he has advanced to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier. Hiss. Even though Luo Ba and Yi Qingyan both possessed battle prowess of 21 stars of Shattering Void tier, and Ling was capable of killing them both in an instant, in the chaotic star's majestic empire, even the whole joint peace planet 20 stars of Shattering Void tier was still a very tall peak that very few could climb. Hence, once they heard that this Yang Zi actually had battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, everyone naturally inhaled sharply and accorded him great attention. Ma Xing walked over. He had also been selected by an official as a prospective representative in the competition. After all, there were too few people that possessed King's Qi. He walked to Ling Han's side and said, "They are all sitting and food is served to them, while we can only stand around. This is really too displeasing." They was naturally referring to the left minister and the others. Ling could not help but grin. He had not thought that there would be so many gluttons in this world. This Ma Xing was also an amazing character. Even in such a situation, all he thought about was food. He could really be considered a weirdo himself. The 9th king arrives. It was at this moment that they heard a female servant announce the host's arrival loudly, her tone firm and voice as loud as thunder. Astonishingly, she was an elite of the Sun-Moon tier. Everyone stood up hurriedly. Even the left and right ministers, as well as the 7 great generals, were no exception. The Empress had said before that seeing the 9 kings was equivalent to seeing her. Now that the 9th king had arrived, it was equivalent to the Empress herself arriving, and who would dare remain seated in her presence? In front of the eyes of the masses, a young woman in purple robes walked over from the entrance to the garden. She looked to be only 18 to 19 years old, and was wrapped by a well-fitted long skirt, which beautifully emphasized her shapely figure, her exquisite curves on full display. This woman was very beautiful. Even compared to Shui Yinyu, she was not the slightest bit inferior, yet she seemed to lack confidence. Being the focus of attention of so many people, a flush immediately rose up on her beautiful face, revealing her bashfulness. She was a little shy, and when she reached the seat of the host, she gestured with her hands and said, "Spare me the formalities, all the L-lords." Ling smiled in spite of himself. The 9th king, with her noble status, was someone that even the left minister had to look up to. Yet she was actually a little woman that seemed to be so easily embarrassed like this. How amusing. And yet, the left and right minister and the others dared not be rude. They respectively paid their respects once more before finally sitting back down, giving her adequate respect. For elites like them, something that happened 700,000 years ago might as well have happened just recently. Who would want the present 7 generals become 6 generals, or the left and right minister become a single minister? There is still half a month before the competition between the 3 empires begins. Today, we need to select the 10 representatives that will be participating on behalf of our empire. The 9th king had gotten slightly used to the environment. Although her beautiful face was still a little red, at least she was no longer talking with a stutter. I, under the command of Big Sister no, Her Imperial Majesty, am responsible for selecting the 10 geniuses that will represent our empire in the competition. She accidentally let something slip, and her small face was completely red all of a sudden, making those who saw her feel sympathy. She was really an alluring little demon. The left minister and the others were not surprised. The 9 kings and the Empress addressed one another like siblings, and they had never avoided this issue. This was also the reason why the 9 kings possessed such high status. Then, let's begin, the 9th king said. She had servants place down 10 chairs in the middle of an open space. The time was limited. After 2 hours, the 10 people that were seated in those chairs would be the ones chosen to represent the chaotic star's majestic empire in the competition. The rules were very simple, and that was to fight over the chairs. Although they had to exchange blows in the garden, what kind of great elites were those seated nearby? Any single one of them could control the shock waves emanating from the battle with a single thought, and would definitely not allow the slightest bit of damage to be inflicted to this place. At this moment, no one dared to make the first move. They had to hold on for 2 hours, so those who sat first would definitely receive more challenges, or would even be ganged up on. Why should they not wait until 2 hours were almost up to make their move? Bunch of cowards. Yang Ci strode out, and walked towards the chair arranged in the first position. Hold on. Ma Xing leaped out quickly. I quite like this place. You can go and take another one. He did not like the other man's behavior. Kaka, why don't you switch to another seat? Yang Ci moved and clawed out at Ma Xing. Ma Xing glared at him, and his king's chi was activated. With the exchange of a single blow, there were images of divine beasts interwoven, indescribably formidable. Pong, pong, pong. Abruptly, the two of them had begun fighting. Ma Xing's personal battle prowess was only 19 stars, but added with his king's chi, he was not any weaker than Yang Ci, who had battle prowess of 20 stars, and the two of them were stuck in a stalemate. The others, after a momentary hesitation, also began to fight over the seats. Ling Han was unperturbed. All the shattering void tier cultivators here added together couldn't match him even if he fought with only one arm, so he naturally couldn't bother to join in on the excitement. He merely closed his eyes to rest on one side, and intended to wait until 2 hours were about to be over. He would simply grab a random seat. Ling Han, are you not going to move? A low voice rang out by his ear. Though it was very soft, it was transmitted directly into his mind, and became akin to a blast of thunder. This was the voice of the left minister. Ling Han raised his head to look, but the left minister was completely not even looking in his direction. Fine. It looked like his laid-back behavior had garnered the displeasure of the left minister, so he deliberately sent him a mental message as warning. Sigh, looks like I can only step out. Ling Han walked ahead whilst twisting his shoulders as if he was going through a warm-up exercise. Since he was going to move, then he'd make it a grand one. A smile lifted the corners of his lips. Ling Han stretched out his right hand, and endless power condensed in his palm. Abruptly, all the higher-ups focused their gazes in his direction. Chapter 933, Might of a Blow. Chapter 933, Might of a Blow. Heavenly body tier elites would naturally not take shattering void tier cultivators seriously, but the energy condensed in this palm of Ling Han's had far surpassed 20 stars of shattering void tier, which moved even these important people. To be able to surpass the maximum limit on any cultivation level was absolutely and definitely not an easy feat, which implied that he could possibly reach an astonishing height in cultivation in the future. Yi Qingyun was present as well. His battle prowess was 21 stars of shattering void tier, so he naturally had to participate on behalf of the Empire as well. Moreover, breaking through to Mountain River tier was definitely not something that could be accomplished in a short while. How could it be something that he could do easily just because he wanted to? He had witnessed Ling Han's battle prowess before, and when he realized that Ling Han was about to make a move, he was instantly scared so much that his hair was on ends. Immediately, he leaped out of his chair as if a fire had been lit under him, ran for his life. As the greatest elite in the Shattering Void Tier division of the Eastern Institution, his abilities were known to all. Hence, it was natural that no one would challenge him once he sat there. To pull a person with battle prowess of 21 stars of Shattering Void Tier off his pedestal, one would at least need 10 people with battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier to join forces to succeed. There might not even be 5 people with battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier here, so who would be foolish enough to challenge him? But with this escape of Yi Qingyun, a great many were confused. Had he been possessed? It was at this moment that Ling Han delivered his palm strike. Pong! A flash of golden light swept over. Pong, pong, pong. Everyone was sent flying as if they were flowers scattered by a divine fairy, flying to all corners. Some collapsed onto the ground, some were crushed down by their chairs, and some fell into the bushes. All in all, aside from Yi Qingyun, who'd had enough foresight and managed to flee in time, the others were all tossed over. The majority directly passed out. A rare few were still conscious, though their faces were filled with shock. This was a little too strong, wasn't it? A muscle in Yi Qingyun's cheek twitched. He'd known that this blow from Ling Han would definitely be very powerful, but he still could not help but feel a shudder in his heart once he had witnessed it with his own eyes. Was this really something a Shattering Void Tier cultivator could accomplish? Monster! This was too monstrous. The left minister was also slightly shocked. He only knew that Ling Han had come through opening the sky, so his abilities had to have reached 20 stars, which was enough to win honor for him. But how could he have imagined that Ling Han would actually be as fearsome as this? When he was young, did he have that kind of ability? The left minister could not help but shake his head. This was the first time that he really looked at this young man. He had really underestimated this emperor that came from a small world. Perhaps, in future, he might be able to become a supreme elite. This thought merely streaked past in the left minister's mind, but he immediately broke into a short laugh. Being strong presently did not mean that one would definitely be strong in future. There were a great many fallen geniuses in this world. It could even be claimed that the world lacked geniuses the least. Yet, there were pitifully few geniuses that could attain the pinnacle. There were even a great many that many did not have an optimistic opinion about, and were not categorized amongst the top-grade elites. On the path of martial arts, there were too many accidents. He had really thought too much. At least 1,000,000 years had to pass before a heavenly body tier elite could appear, and there were pitifully few of them. However, it had to be admitted that the present Ling Han was definitely forceful, showing an invincible, elegant bearing. He lifted up a chair and sat down alone just like that. There was absolutely no one that could equal him. The Ninth King's small mouth assumed an O shape, while her eyes widened. She was still young and did not think so far ahead. She had merely been stunned by this strike from Ling Han. Great! Awesome! She clapped her hands and kicked her legs, like a naive, pampered little girl. This attracted the attention of everyone. She quickly stuck out her small tongue and appeared to be even more childish. Only now did Yi Qingyun return, hissing through his teeth. He also pulled up a chair, but did not dare to sit right next to Ling Han. Instead, he placed the chair a bit behind of Ling Han's seat. Those that were still conscious on the ground slowly got back to their feet, and each lifted up a chair to sit down on. Like Yi Qingyun, none of them dared to sit lined up with Ling Han. This was the respect that they should accord a man stronger than them. Ling Han's strength had already far surpassed the level they were on. Upon counting, there just happened to be 10 of them, so there was no need for further battles. This caused the left minister and the other higher-ups to be slightly stunned. Could it be that when Ling Han delivered his blow, he had already planned this out? If that was the case, the ability of this young man had to be given a slightly higher estimate. However, Ling Han had not deliberately done so. He had merely controlled the power behind this palm strike, so the people who were the strongest would not pass out. He had not foreseen that there just happened to be 10 of them altogether. Thus, Ma Xing, Yang Xiai, and the others were all seated. The right minister and the 7 great generals all cast a few more looks at Ling Han. Such a monstrous shattering void tier cultivator moved even them slightly, and they remembered his name. But that was the only thing they did. Meanwhile, the 9th king appeared very excited and asked Ling Han, "What is your name?" Ling Han stood up, being neither servile nor overbearing, and replied evenly, "I am Ling Han." The 9th king could not help but begin clapping her hands again. "This time, we will definitely be in first place. Hee, this is the first time I have done something so well for Big Sister. In future, no one would be allowed to call me little idiot." Once she had said so, she immediately stuck out her tongue. She had once again embarrassed herself. All right, you can all go back." She quickly began chasing them out, naturally not hoping for others to laugh at her. None of them dared to disobey, so everyone swiftly departed. The command of the 9th king was equivalent to the command of the Empress, and no one could disobey. In the top 10, there was a total of 7 that came from the Scarlet Heaven Academy. The other 6 all followed behind Ling Han respectfully. Their eyes were even filled with fanaticism. They had reached the height of battle prowess of 19 stars or even 20 stars, and were thus deeply aware how difficult it was to reach or surpass this limit. Naturally, they were filled with admiration and respect for Ling Han. The might of that palm strike previously was practically something to marvel at, like it was a divine feat. As they passed, they, like subordinates, flanked Ling Han as he entered into the academy. This scene caused those who witnessed it to click their tongues in amazement. "Oh!" Zhao Luan revealed a smile. Like before, he was standing at the bottom of the waterfall. This was because he was cultivating a secret technique. He could not move his body, as he had observed this waterfall and understand a certain rhythm of its movement. This person from a small world, his battle prowess has actually exceeded 20 stars? He appeared slightly surprised. Zhao Xiao was presently relating the event that had happened just a few days ago. "Yes, young master," Zhao Xiao said respectfully, a sliver of admiration in his eyes. The ability of this ant from a small world had slightly exceeded his expectations. Luoba was eliminated in a single strike, and he had become a competition representative for the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire. Since he has gained the right to participate, it would not be so easy to kill him. Otherwise, if the Empress lays the blame. When Zhao Luan spoke about this, he could not help but feel a shudder. Even for a genius like him, his heart would shudder at the mere mention of the Empress of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire. In the hearts of all the citizens of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, the Empress of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire was a being that was eternally invincible and could never be surpassed. "Young master, what do you plan to do?" Zhao Xiao asked. He understood this young master of his. He would definitely not spare Ling Han just like this. Zhao Luan laughed loudly and said, "We shall temporarily spare his life and kill him once the competition between the 3 empires is over. However, we cannot let him off so easily. You go and make some arrangements." He began to issue his orders. Zhao Xiao's lips curled up in an uncontrollable smile as he said, "Haha, even if that brat manages to safely pass this night, he would garner the hatred of the Western institution." Chapter 934, Battling the Western Institution. Chapter 934, Battling the Western Institution. Ling Han was cultivating in his rooms, his heart calm. He was progressing further and further on his 6 techniques return to 1, and added with the fact that he had money, allowing him to purchase enough alchemical pills, his strength was improving at an astonishing rate. At most in half a year's time, or even in a shorter period, he would be able to reach the maximum limit of strength of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier. HM? An attentive expression appeared on his face, but his hair immediately stood on ends. Another person had actually appeared in his courtyard without any warning. This person was clothed completely in black, and a veil concealed his face. He was even wearing a cloak, and not even his figure could be distinguished. Was this another assassin from the Dark Knight Hall? However, would the Dark Knight Hall actually dare be so bold, actually making their move even within the bounds of the Scarlet Heaven Academy? Die! The black-robed person humphed coldly, and suddenly moved, sending out a palm strike in Ling Han's direction. The speed. Why was it so slow? Ling Han could clearly see that there were even 3 mountains and rivers flickering behind this person, yet the might of this blow was only 22 to 23 stars of Shattering Void tier, and completely did not match the cultivation level of one in the higher levels of the Mountain River tier. With a leap, he dodged this blow. Xiao, the black-robed person pursued, and once again delivered a palm strike toward Ling Han. The might behind this strike was much greater, and had reached the level of 25 stars of Shattering Void tier. Only limited to the Mountain River tier cultivators, it would be much too easy for them to increase their battle prowess by another 2 stars of Shattering Void tier. It would only be a matter of thought. Ling Han's brow wrinkled into a frown. He hurriedly dodged and fled out of his courtyard. The black-robed man pursued quickly and attacked endlessly. However, he did not deliver an attack on the level of Mountain River tier, and was merely herding Ling Han into a specific place. One chased, while the other fled. They were moving very quickly, and in the blink of an eye, they had left the northern institution and were heading towards the west. Ling Han immediately understood. The man wanted to chase him into the western institution. In the Scarlet Heaven Academy, the 4 great institutions were as incompatible as fire and water, and their relations were filled with fierce competition. If a student of the northern institution appeared in the western institution, what consequences would await him? He would be thrashed hideously. The man wanted to use the western institution and teach him a lesson. This man was definitely not a member of the Dark Knight Hall. If he was, why would he do something so unnecessary? Moreover, if he really was a man of the Dark Knight Hall, how could he possibly enter into the Scarlet Heaven Academy? He would have been killed long ago. But a black-robed man, with unidentifiable origins, was practically committing crime in public. What did this mean? The higher-ups of the academy definitely knew the identity of this person, yet did not make any move to stop him, which meant that they were wary of the backer behind him. Then there was only one person left. Zhao Luan. This person had to be Zhao Luan's subordinate, and the higher-ups of the academy also knew that he would not act recklessly. Thus, they decided to turn a blind eye to the matter. After all, Zhao Luan was the only son of the great General Zhao. Who would dare not give him some face? Pong! The black-robed man suddenly delivered a heavy blow. With this blow, Ling Han was instantly sent flying and crashed heavily into the wall of a courtyard. Who is it? This was the dorm area for the Shattering Void tier cultivators of the Western Institution. Immediately, a great many people raced over and discovered Ling Han among the ruins. The black-robed man had long since flashed away, vanishing completely from sight. Ling Han stood up. The black-robed man had not used full power in his last blow. However, the strike was too fast, so he could not dodge in time. Naturally, it could not possibly have injured him. Someone from the Northern Institution. It's Ling Han, the number 1 student of this batch of new students. Fuck, does he think that he can come and mess around in our Western Institution just because his battle prowess has surpassed 20 stars? Thrash him. There were as many as 2,000 people in the whole Shattering Void tier division of the Western Institution. Moreover, all of them had been in the academy for more than 5 years, so no matter what, their battle prowess had reached 15 stars at least. With so many of them added together, what Shattering Void tier cultivator would have any choice but to retreat? Furthermore, it was Ling Han who had barged into the Western Institution, and if he got thrashed, he would deserve it. So, whom could he ask for justice? He was compelled. Who compelled you? The black-robed man? Were you joking? Anyone could throw on a suit of black robes, and he would become a black-robed man. Ling Han smirked coldly inside. He knew that Zhao Luan was trying to make trouble for him. He did not dare to kill him in the academy, but the son of the great General Zhao could mess around and give you a hard time. What could you do about it? If he was not a match for them, he would definitely be thrashed severely, and in the case he won, he would similarly garner the rage of the Western institution students in the Mountain River tier. Weren't you acting a little too arrogant, coming all alone to the Western institution to strut around? Ling Han recalled how Shui Yinyu described him. Zhao Luan was a poisonous snake. This really was a very fitting description. Hong. Immediately, a few dozen people rushed over. Now, they had the advantage in numbers, so they were naturally not the slightest bit afraid of Ling Han. Ling Han stretched out a hand and immediately grabbed one of them. Placing the person in front of him as a meat shield with a smile, he said, "Everyone, I have accidentally lost my way. Apologies. I will be leaving now, and we will part with no hard feelings, all right? Humph, you dare barge into our Western institution and still plan on strutting nonchalantly out of our territory? Ling Han, aren't you being a little too arrogant here? Would you be able to boast later that you managed to barge all alone into our Western institution and leave completely unscathed? In your dreams." They all made their moves, but because there was a human shield, they naturally had misgivings. "If you're capable, don't take a hostage." "That's right. Let's have a frank and upright fight," they exclaimed, trying to spur him into action. Ling Han could not help but grin. "Several hundred to over 1,000 of you guys against only one of me, and this can still be considered a frank and upright fight?" Still, he was really unafraid. "Since you all want to fight, then let us have a fight." Ling Han casually tossed the hostage in his grasp to one side. What was there for him to fear? Haha, beat him up. The several dozen people once more rushed over, and even more surrounded them to watch the fight. Even a casual strike from a shattering void tier could shoot out attacks from over 30 meters away, but over 1,000 of them were really still too many, and it was definitely impossible for them to deliver their attacks all at the same time. Ling Han clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out. Pong! His strength was really too powerful. A punch from him, and it was like a mountain peak crashing down. Instantly, over a dozen people were sent flying and directly passed out. The students of the Western institution were all shocked. What kind of battle prowess was that if a single punch could send over a dozen of them flying? They had been accepted by the Scarlet Heaven Academy, so which one of them was not a genius among geniuses? "Let's go. I don't believe we still cannot deal with him when there's so many of us here." Like an ocean, people rushed out towards Ling Han. However, Ling Han merely needed to shot out a punch, and there would be over a dozen people sent flying like they were straws. They would pass out with a single strike and lose all ability to continue battle. Over a dozen punches later, more than 200 people collapsed onto the ground. Even though there were close to 1,800 people of the Western institution still standing, that was only a matter that could be resolved with an additional 100 or so punches. Too monstrous. How could a shattering void tier cultivator be as strong as this? They were all humans, so why was the difference between them so huge? Should they also squeeze into some small world and learn through experience? "Is there anyone else?" Ling Han asked calmly, his eyes sweeping over the remaining 1,800 people. Those that his gaze passed over could not help but lower their eyes, not daring to make eye contact with him. He was obviously not equipped with King's Chi, so why did he possess such powerful intimidation? "Let's go. We definitely cannot allow him to leave so easily. Otherwise, what would remain of the pride of our Western institution? We must detain him at all costs." Chapter 935, Invincible, Sweeping Aside All Opposition. Chapter 935, Invincible, Sweeping Aside All Opposition. The students of the Western institution surged forth continuously, dashing forward bravely without care for their safety. This was not a mortal duel. No matter how harsh Ling Han was, he could not possibly kill or cripple them. As a result, they had lost much of their wariness, and aroused their bloodthirst and courage, determined to give this scoundrel that dared not to take their Western institution seriously a good thrashing. Unfortunately, no matter how many lambs there were, how could they be a match for a fierce lion? What more when they could not even be considered lambs in front of Ling Han? Ling Han threw out a careless punch, and the people dispersed like they were flowers scattered by a divine fairy. Pong! Immediately, over a dozen people were sent flying. It seemed accomplished very easily, and was not the slightest bit difficult. Senior brother Jia, it's all up to you now. Everyone turned their eyes to a thin young man. He looked like a bean sprout, and his whole body looked like it was skin wrapped over bones. This young man nodded, and suddenly took a deep breath. Pong! His left shoulder and hand seemed to have been pumped full of air, and abruptly enlarged. Then, it was his right arm, torso, his 2 legs. Only his head still maintained its original appearance. Abruptly, he had transformed from a bean sprout into a 9-meter-tall giant. His muscles were bursting, and reflected light as if they were covered in a layer of oil. Senior brother has cultivated an incomplete heaven-swallowing technique. Normally, he only has battle prowess of 18 stars, but once he explodes, his battle prowess can reach 21 stars, or even more than that. Humph! Senior brother Jia's talent is not weaker than Yi Qingyun's in the first place. However, Yi Qingyun could attain 21 stars of battle prowess in normal condition, whereas senior brother Jia's exploded battle prowess will definitely be capable of surpassing him. 22 stars. Everyone was filled with anticipation. Their senior brother Jia should be able to save the day, suppressing Ling Han so that the Western institution would not continue being embarrassed. Pong! 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 Senior brother Jia rushed out towards Ling Han. His current figure was huge and frighteningly heavy. Every step he placed on the ground was as loud as a clap of thunder, and even the ground itself was trembling as if it would split open at any moment. With him rushing forth like that, everyone else raced away. Senior brother Jia was too strong now. They would suffer even if merely the shock wave swept over them. Pong! Senior brother disciple Jia shot out a punch, aiming at Ling Han's head. In front of his colossal body that was 9 meters tall, Ling Han was practically like a newborn, pitifully small. Thrash him to death, the masses cheered. Ling Han was slightly surprised. The battle prowess this giant exploded with had actually surpassed Yi Qingyun's. Unfortunately, he had obviously used a kind of secret technique to forcefully boost his battle prowess, and could only maintain his boosted battle prowess for a pitifully short time. Yet it was precisely because of that the focused explosion of battle prowess would naturally be incomparably terrifying. Still, compared with Ling Han, this bit of battle prowess was absolutely not enough. Ling Han stretched out his hand, parrying lightly. Pa! The fist that senior brother had shot out could not descend any further once it had arrived right on top of Ling Han's head. But, because their 2 figures were completely unequal, while this fist from senior brother Jia was frighteningly huge, covering Ling Han's head, others would not be able to see the real situation. Many of them thought that Ling Han had been hit and could not help but begin cheering. They roared for a while, but when they discovered that Ling Han was still standing firm, they could not help but look stunned. Was this guy a monster? Ling Han lifted his hand, and senior brother Jia's massive torso was raised high above his head. He was like an ant lifting up a huge lion, making for a bizarre and disharmonious scene. Go! Ling Han swatted his hand and Xiao, senior brother Jia was tossed away. He landed heavily on a wall and stopped with a bang. Pooh! Senior brother Jia let out a shockingly loud fart, launching his whole person up into the air. However, his body was quickly shrinking, and in an instant, he returned to his original size. His battle prowess had also returned to 18 stars of shattering void tier. Even someone as strong as senior brother Jia was no match for Ling Han. Finally, the students of the Western institution became afraid. The person they were facing was no ordinary genius. An advantage in numbers was not the slightest bit useful in front of this monster. Ling Han cracked a smile and asked, "You still want to fight?" They all looked at the people who were lying all over the place. By now, the number had surpassed more than half of them. Yet Ling Han was still looking as if he hadn't even warmed up yet, completely unruffled and calm. They shook their heads simultaneously. They were not going to fight anymore. This guy was too monstrous. Their best bet was to wait for this monster to advance into the mountain river tier so that they could ask their senior brother and senior sister disciples in the mountain river tier to deal with him. If we aren't going to fight anymore, I'm going back to sleep. Ling Han did not say any more words of apology. He had already thrashed more than half of the people of the Western institution onto the ground. So if he said anything along the lines of apologies, it would be as if he was showing off, having the opposite effect. He left, his arms crossed behind his back. The people of the Western institution could only watch helplessly, their eyes shooting fire. Actually, Ling Han himself was also very displeased. Although he had really shown off his might here, he had been forced to do so. Zhao Luan, looks like our feud is established. Ling Han thought. Did he have the ability to oppose Zhao Luan now? No. Setting aside Zhao Luan, even the 3 great followers beneath him, as well as the subordinates below these followers, were people he was no match for. There was nothing that could be done. The gap between the Mountain River tier and Shattering Void tier was too massive. I have to rush up to the Mountain River tier. Then, with my potential, it would definitely not be difficult to become a 5-star genius. Then, I would be able to match an opponent in the middle stage of the middle levels of the Mountain River tier when I myself am in the lower levels. At least I would not be so passive. Zhao Luan resents me because of senior sister Shui, so she would be his weakness. Then, I will pretend to be intimate with senior sister Shui to get back at him. I'm not someone who doesn't take revenge when he should. On the second day, the monthly assessment that took place once every month in the Northern Institution began. This was to assess everyone's abilities and check whether they had improved or degraded. After all, there were some that had entered into the academy with gritted teeth after they successfully enrolled into the academy. It could not be helped that they would relax and no longer work hard at cultivation. So, it was possible for their abilities to not rise, but instead fall. The path of martial arts was an uphill battle. If someone's ability declined, the first time would garner them a warning, the second time would result in elimination of all favorable conditions, and the third would lead to expulsion. Thus, the monthly assessment was still quite important. Over 500 new students arrived. Shui Yinyu's eyes swept once over each person's face, and she said, "Today, the monthly assessment will be conducted. Everyone must put their full effort into it. If you perform worse than when you entered the academy, you will receive a warning from the academy, and after 3 times, you will be directly expelled." Yes, they all answered with utmost seriousness. Ling Han raised his hand, stood up, and asked, "Senior sister, if we get the first place, is there any reward?" Shui Yinyu shook her head and answered, "No. No reward?" Instantly, Ling Han lost all interest. Sprawling out on the table, he dozed off. If there was no reward, what motivation was there for him to do well? Looking at his laid-back appearance, Shui Yinyu could not help but feel irritated. This guy, his ability was obviously so strong. So why did he not have the slightest bit of assertiveness? Where was your sense of responsibility? If it weren't for the fact that this guy was her husband in name, she would really not bother herself with him. "Let's begin," she declared, displeased. This so-called test, in simple terms, was a fight. If that was not the case, what else could it be? Yet no one dared to challenge Ling Han. They had all agreed tacitly that he was in the first place. What a joke. Just yesterday, senior brother Ling had challenged the whole Western institution all by himself. How awesome was that? If you were stronger than senior brother Ling, then wouldn't you have to step out as well if the Western institution came and looked for trouble? Wouldn't that be looking for a beating? Thus, Ling Han had obviously not fought a single battle, but he had automatically obtained the first place in this monthly assessment. Chapter 936, Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. Chapter 936, Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. After the examination, Ling Han deliberately approached Shui Yinyu to ask a question, moving close to her. He was very well versed in cultivation, and had an extraordinarily profound understanding. A few words, and he had already managed to arouse Shui Yinyu's interest. She was completely unaware that she was getting too close to Ling Han. Perhaps, in her heart, she had already tacitly consented to Ling Han having certain privileges, hence letting her guard down. Ling Han secretly laughed in his heart. There's definitely bound to be Zhao Luan's spy here. If that's the case, take a good look then, and quickly go report it. Western Institution. A few young men who had images of mountains and rivers fluttering behind them stood with their hands clasped behind their backs, looking down at a group of red-faced, shattering void-tier junior brother and sister disciples, their expressions considerably unpleasant. Just one person, charging in alone, yet the lot of you couldn't even manage to stop him? And not only did you lot fail to stop him, but also let him injure so many people. You bunch of useless trash. Or so these senior brothers of Mountain River Tier reprimanded them. They were all from the lower level section of the Western Institution. After learning that Ling Han had single-handedly caused a stir in the Shattering Void Tier division yesterday, they had come over today to verify the situation. Could this Ling Han possibly have some kind of superhuman powers? They felt nothing but utter disdain. After all, there were too many students in the Scarlet Heaven Academy, and a mere shattering void-tier cultivator, no matter how much of a genius he was, would not warrant the attention of the Mountain River Tier. Hence, they found it incomprehensible. These Western Institution junior brother and sisters were really too weak, actually letting someone so effortlessly come and go, and in so doing inadvertently causing the Western Institution to lose face. Senior brother Lu, that Ling Han is really very powerful. When he dueled with Luoba a few days ago, he killed Luoba with just a single move, as testified by witnesses of the match. Senior brother disciple Lu, whose name was Lu Hong, had achieved peak cultivation of the lower levels of the Mountain River Tier, and at the same time was also a one-star genius. He was the strongest of these people, and thus recognized as the leader among these few Mountain River Tier cultivators. With a face filled with indifference, Lu Hong scoffed, "Luoba? One of the so-called three elites of the younger generation of the imperial capital? His battle prowess is merely no more than 18 to 19 stars. In reply to senior brother Lu, Luoba had refined a blood-tier stone, and his battle prowess had already reached 21 stars. Previously, he had sparred with Yi Qingyun, which after 3 moves ended up being a draw, a student reported. Only upon hearing this did Lu Hong and his group reveal an expression of shock, for even they themselves had not reached the battle prowess of 21 stars in the first place. Yesterday, senior brother Jia also went all out, but was still defeated by that Ling Han in one move, another student said. Lu Heng's expression became more and more solemn as he said, "If that is so, then wouldn't that person already have achieved the strength of 23 stars? That is not entirely impossible," a Mountain River Tier student replied. "As far as I know, that guy ascended here from a small world, and on top of that, is also an emperor that opened the sky. Senior brother Lu, there's a rumor that if one were to come by opening the sky, they would be rewarded by the heavens and earth." Rewarded by the heavens and earth? Lu Hong questioned. Although he was a genius in the Mountain River Tier, generally he would not bother with the affairs of a small world whatever for. Opening the sky and being rewarded by heavens and earth. What did it have to do with him? It is said that one could obtain an infusion of strength, thereby making up for the gap in strength of the final 3 stars. Lu Hong was now struck with awe as he said, opening the sky needs the battle prowess of at least 20 stars. Coupled with the strength of 3 stars, his battle prowess has then achieved 23 stars. This ought to be inexplicable. There was definitely none among Shattering Void Tier that could equal such a monster. Right. He suddenly clapped his hands and remarked, "The competition between the 3 empires is about to start, which also signifies the opening of the Heavenly Sea Mysterious Realm." Senior brother Lu, what do you mean? Hee. If that guy can enter into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, then his life and death would be in our hands, Lu Hong sneered. Haha, if he is qualified to enter, then we'll teach him a lesson. At the waterfall. In a tone betraying his astonishment and disbelief, Zhao Luan asked, Even the entire Western institution could not stop him. The second follower of his men, by UNC, respectfully said, in reply to young master, that Guy's battle prowess is suspected to have already reached 23 stars. Without the support of power of the nation, it is reckoned there are none among shattering void tier that could defeat him. Zhao Luan's expression darkened suddenly. When he had been in the shattering void tier, he had only reached the battle prowess of 20 stars, yet now there was someone whose battle prowess surpassed his by a good 3 stars. He found it somewhat displeasing. With his battle prowess, this time he would surely be able to lead our empire to win the first place in the competition among the 3 empires. Her Imperial Majesty the Empress is fair and just in meting out punishments and granting rewards where it's warranted, so probably she would bestow upon him a chance to enter into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, by UNC added. Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. Zhao Luan's eyes gleamed. The reason why he had been able to become a 4-star genius had an inseparable relation with his entering into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm in the past, which allowed him to attain a special ability. If he were to enter into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, then don't let him out ever again, he said coldly. Though he knew Shui Yinyu's temperament like the back of his hand, the fact remained that the recent rumors still made him utterly displeased. Yes. By UNC promptly half-knelt. Time flew by quickly. Ling Han had been very low-key and remained within the academy, not giving the Dark Knight Hall a chance to assassinate him. On Zhao Luan's side, he had also become rather peaceful and did not wreak havoc anymore. Day by day, the competition among the 3 empires approached closer and closer. On this day, Ling Han was summoned over by the left minister. Tomorrow was the day of the competition among the 3 empires. Thus, he was to stay at the left minister's residence today and enter the imperial palace with the left minister tomorrow. The competition between the 3 empires was held once every 10 years, and the chosen venue was rotated between the 3 of them. This year, it happened to be the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire's turn. Otherwise, they would have had to set out at least half a month in advance. Ling Han, if you perform well this time, you should be able to obtain the opportunity to enter into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, the left minister suddenly mentioned. Ling Han stared blankly and asked, "My lord, what's Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm? How dare you? Are you qualified to ask questions in front of the left minister?" Xiang Chengyuan berated him at once. The left minister smiled subtly, his hand moving in a waving gesture as he said, "No matter, no matter." He seemed to be enthusiastically engaged in the conversation as he elaborated, Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm opens once every 10 years. Within the Mystery Realm, there is a type of stone, which can help shattering void tier cultivators form mountains and rivers, infinitely shortening the time needed to break through and also greatly heightening the rate of success. Given it having such an effect, we all termed it as Mountain River Stone. It is the speciality of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. As to why it is so, and why it's not found in other places, that no one knows. Some unique mountain river stones even have extraordinary effects. For instance, the heavy origin stone can make the mountains and rivers that you form possess an exceedingly heavy effect. Drawing it out when in combat will cause your opponent to be weighed down by your mountains and rivers. Meanwhile, flame stone will let your mountains and rivers possess an extreme fiery power. There's no object that will not melt away. However, the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm has specific restrictions on a cultivator's cultivation level, and only allows the maximum cultivation level of the lower levels of the mountain river tier to enter. Hence, there are many of those in your academy who purposely suppress their cultivation just for the sake of entering into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm a few more times. The left minister has spoken a great deal in one breath, a nostalgic expression playing on his face. When I was younger, I did not have much of a background, therefore, I did not have the chance to enter. Otherwise, if I could possess certain secret powers of the mountain river tier, perhaps my battle prowess could already attain the level of 5-star genius. Ling Han was astonished. If even the left minister had such deep emotions towards it, then this Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm was really a place worth going to. Chapter 937. The Stage Battles Begin. Chapter 937. The Stage Battles Begin. The left minister merely sighed, but did not further elaborate on the situation of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. Since the left minister did not say anything, Ling Han naturally did not probe for more information. He intended to find out more about it from Shui Yinyu upon his return. They were taking a ride on the left minister's carriage. Its speed was amazing, and they arrived outside the imperial palace in a short span of time. When they reached this point, even the left minister couldn't bring in his carriage. After they had gotten down from the carriage, the guards checked the trio's identities before letting them pass. "While we are here, you mustn't speak rashly," the left minister warned severely.
Yes.
Ling Han and Xiang Chengyun acknowledged. This was the central authority of the entire Chaotic Star's majestic empire and one of the 3 central administrations of the joint peace planet. The main color theme of the palace was pink. It was quite feminine, but there was no helping it, since the sovereign here was an empress with the reputation of the world's #1 beauty. Even the monarchs of the other 2 majestic empires were willing to give up their territory and throne for her. If she wasn't full of feminine charms, who would be? Ling Han was somewhat expectant. He was finally able to meet Her Imperial Majesty, the legendary Empress, and see for himself how enticing and enchanting she was that even the other 2 great monarchs would be willing to become her subjects. Xiang Chengyun also wasn't able to stop himself from hyperventilating. It wasn't that he had never seen the Empress before, but her beauty was too alluring, so much so that the thought of meeting her made his heart beat faster and his breathing ragged. It could be said that anyone who had seen Her Imperial Majesty, the Empress, would no longer see another person as a beauty, and could only have eyes for such a stunning character with capability of causing chaos amongst the common folk. Compared to the Empress, the other so-called beauties would totally dim in comparison and be considered dregs among dregs. Entering deep into the palace, the guards here were substituted with females. It was probably for fear of men being unreliable. If they were the guards here, the possibility of embezzlement would be higher, and in turn, it would be unsafe. The venue for the martial arts competition had been set up in the Imperial training field. Not only was the venue of the competition massive, the seating area for the audience was also very large. There were 4 spectators' grandstands towering above like overhanging cliffs. The one located in the south was by far the largest, like a monarch among them. This was naturally the exclusive seat of the Empress. Usually, only the 9 kings were allowed to go up there. The other 3 grandstands were much smaller. The one located in the east had been assigned to the Emperor of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, the one in the west assigned to the J-Drop Majestic Empire, and the one in the north would be shared by top officials such as the left and right ministers and 7 great generals. Whenever the 3 majestic empires held this competition, given that this would involve the pride of an entire nation, the standards were extremely high. The other 2 majestic empires had each sent a crown prince to lead their respective teams. Leading the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire's team was the brother of its current emperor, while the J-Drop Majestic Empire's team was led by their emperor's 4th uncle. They were all powerful bigwigs that stood above all levels of society, and their cultivation levels had already reached the heavenly body tier. Of course, Ling Han wasn't qualified to sit in any of the 4 grandstands. As for Xiang Chengyun, he was only able to stand in the north grandstand thanks to the left minister. Naturally, being at the bottom meant that Ling Han couldn't see the situation at the grandstand high above, which made him find it somewhat regrettable, as he wouldn't be able to see the Empress of Chaotic Star's majestic empire even if she had come. It wasn't that he harbored any special feelings for Her Imperial Majesty, the Empress. It was just that he had heard so much about her exquisite beauty being beyond comparison that it made him curious, and he wanted to see her with his own eyes. The contestants of the 3 majestic empires stood on the imperial training field. A stage had been erected in the middle. This was a stage battle. Naturally, there would be rules for a stage battle. Any contestant that fell off the stage would be considered defeated. Otherwise, if one could run away and the other gave chase, then when would the competition be concluded? With the kind of powerful bigwigs present here, how could they spend so much time watching the show of shattering void-tier cultivators? Brother Ling, I've just gotten some news. There's trouble this time. Xiang Chengyun suddenly ran over, waved to the other 8 people, and said, "Everyone, Come and listen. What kind of trouble? Ma Xing said offhandedly. With Brother Ling here, we will definitely take first place. That's right. The others nodded one by one. Ling Han's performance had completely won them over. Xiang Chengyan actually shook his head to that as he said, That's precisely it. I've just received some information and done my research on the background of the contestants from the other two majestic empires. They also have two exceptional contestants. Can they be more exceptional than Brother Ling? Ma Xing said while putting up his hands, seemingly not bothered. Xiang Qingyun shook his head and said, The contestant from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire is said to be the descendant of the Peacock Flame King, while the one from J-Drop Majestic Empire is known as the Big Turtle King, and was speculated to be the descendant of the Divine Beast, Black Tortoise One. At this time, everyone was a little convinced. Once things involved a divine beast, the battle prowess could not be ascertained using common sense. As Ling Han was somewhat intrigued, he said, That I would like to see. He was so strong that he always had an overwhelming advantage over other shattering void tier cultivators. On the contrary, having another person who could challenge him was actually a pleasant surprise. Being invincible was fucking lonely. Seeing that Ling Han was so confident, everyone's heart somewhat settled down. Although Ling Han did not possess any bloodline advantage, he was also exceptional indeed. Her Imperial Majesty arrives, a female official shouted loudly, and her voice reverberated above the training ground. Shua, everyone stood up to welcome the arrival of the Empress. Ling Han looked up towards the southern grandstand, yet he could not see anything. He could not help but be disappointed. There was a commotion in the grandstands above. The Empress of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire was not only renowned throughout the world for her formidable strength, her exquisite beauty had even won over the hearts of the other two emperors. Who wouldn't want to take another look at her? It was a pity that due to location, only the people on the other three grandstands were able to view the true face of the Empress. Let's start, said a somewhat stuttering voice. It was precisely the Ninth King's. Sure enough, the Ninth King and the Empress were like sisters, and this voice was transmitted from the southern grandstand above. The winner for first place in the previous competition was Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, so they will be defending. The second place for the previous competition was Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, so they would take the lead in attacking first, while J-Drop Majestic Empire will be the second to attack. The Ninth King had adjusted her emotions and no longer stuttered in her next sentence. The three majestic empires apparently had already arranged the order of appearance for each of their respective contestants. Therefore, when the voice of the Ninth King fell, one contestant from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had jumped onto the stage. On the other side, a contestant of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire by the name of Mo Xiang had taken the lead to attack. Ling Han didn't pay much attention to it. He would be the last to battle, being the strongest. There was still a lot of time to spare until his turn. He wasn't concerned with how many people would be left on either side. He was searching around in the ordinary stands and soon caught sight of Shui Yinyu. She had come with other people from the academy. After discovering Ling Han's gaze, several female companions around her suddenly laughed and made fun of Shui Yinyu, causing the beauty to flush red with embarrassment. Ling Han saw Luo Lai again. He sat behind several middle-aged and old men. After discovering Ling Han's gaze, his own gaze became somewhat strange. It was filled with anger, but he also appeared somewhat pleased with himself. However, those middle-aged and elderly people cast a cold gaze towards Ling Han and did not conceal their killing intent in the slightest. They were all members of the Luo clan. So that's the reason why they hate me so much, Ling Han thought to himself. Then you all had better wait and watch me make a sweeping victory, helping you resent me even more. Chapter 938, Invincible Defense? Chapter 938, Invincible Defense? The fight progressed very quickly. Being confined to a small platform left no room for movement techniques to be brought forth. In a matter of a few moves, contestants were already locked in combat at close quarters. It was but a little over half an hour, yet only 3 people were left on the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire's side, and there was not much difference on the two other sides either. Facts prove that apart from Ling Han, this kind of monster that emerged occasionally, the three majestic empires' reserves of top-rate talents were more or less the same. When Ma Xing was also defeated, Yi Chengyun stepped forth to fight. He picked 4 opponents from the 2 majestic empires to firstly force the leader of the team from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire out. It was a woman. She was of a slender frame, with features so beautiful they were like art and long hair that fell straight down, touching her rear. Her style of dressing was also very refreshing. Her top was extremely short and actually exposed a small stretch of her waist, which was fair as ivory and smooth as fine jade. Her bottom, on the other hand, was clad in a pair of leather pants, which were cut off below the knee, revealing a pair of flawless porcelain-like calves, forming a stark contrast with the black color of the leather pants, which made them even more prominently snowy. Her figure was really too perfect. She had a curvaceous plump rear the shape of ripened peaches, so tempting that one just wanted to take a bite off it. The light reflected off her pants made her asterisk appear even more profoundly stirring. Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, Yu Rong'er. She cupped her fists in greeting. Yi Qingyun revealed traces of a stunned expression as he reciprocated the gesture, and in return greeted, Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, Yi Qingyun. Please, please. As soon as the formalities were over, Yu Rong'er immediately launched an attack, her figure leaping forth while giving rise to a stream of light. Her speed was extremely swift, appearing in front of Yi Qingyun in a fraction of a second as she pressed her palm forward. Yi Qingyun was taken aback. This speed was beyond anything he'd expected. Nevertheless, she was the leader guarding the frontier of the opposing party, and he had expected that her strength would be formidable. In any case, he was also someone with battle prowess of 21 stars of shattering void tier, and his strength was astonishingly powerful. He immediately clenched his fist and slammed it towards his opponent. Pong! The fist and palm strongly collided. However, Yi Qingyun was immediately sent flying by the force from the impact and landed outside the platform. Unexpectedly, he was not on par with his opponent at all. Ling Han's eyes brightened. The battle prowess that this woman displayed was only of 21 stars and slightly above, not even 22 stars yet. However, she also did not draw on any secret techniques at all, which showed that her battle prowess had definitely surpassed 22 stars, or had even possibly already reached 23 stars. With Yi Qingyun's defeat, it was the J-Drop Majestic Empire's turn to send forth their leader. J-Drop Majestic Empire, Zhong Hai. He was a man with an extremely odd figure. His stature was not short, yet he had a stooped back, and his back was akin to a tortoise's. Not only was it flat, but it was also carrying a semicircular form. A descendant of the black tortoise, it could indeed possibly not be just mere hearsay. The two then engaged in a fierce battle. From the offense aspect, Yu Rong'er had the upper hand, but Zhong Hai had also inherited the tortoise's defensive capabilities. No matter how strong the offense that came his way, he only needed to turn his back around, and that tortoise-like back could easily receive any strike. The only way to injure him would be to draw near and fight him at close range, without giving him time to turn around. But to fight at close range would be too dangerous. It was also not suitable for a cultivator of origin power. It was the offensive tactic of a cultivator of body arts. Yu Rong'er's strength evidently went beyond this. She exclaimed softly, "Peacock's numerous plumes, shatters the cosmos." Suddenly, a beautiful spread of plumes appeared on her back, akin to a peacock fanning out its tail in a splash of colors. Next, the total of 72 plumes all shot out directly towards Zhong Hai at the same time. There was no such thing as an absolute defense in this world, only an offense that was not powerful enough. Zhong Hai actually smirked and turned his body around as before, but this time around, his back suddenly bulged, tearing his clothes apart to reveal an oval black tortoise shell. On its surface were divine patterns that were at that moment already interwoven and emitting light. He was obviously at the shattering void tier only, yet he could activate divine patterns. Although it was only a mere few, their power naturally was incomparably formidable. This was precisely his bloodline, letting him possess a bit of the power of a mortal level in advance. Shio, 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 shio. Numerous plumes shot out at the tortoise shell, evoking a dazzling burst of light rays. Numerous plumes swept past, yet Zhong Hai was unscathed. Ha 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 ha. Zhong Hai moved to fight back, but he did not attack, and just used his tortoise back as a shield and rammed towards Yuronger. His objective was very obvious. He wanted to knock Yuronger off the platform. Then, he could win without a fight. It was very underhanded, but it was very effective. The defense ability of the tortoise shell was too terrifying. Furthermore, there were divine patterns on it. A shattering void tier cultivator being slammed with it once had to be absolutely in a world of pain. When Yuronger was forced into a corner, it was also tantamount to proclaiming her defeat. She was knocked down from the platform. Yuronger was seething with anger. In terms of real battle prowess, she definitely was not inferior to Zhong Hai, but she was at too much of a disadvantage fighting on a tournament platform, and her powerful attack strength was practically useless. With this turn of events, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire would be ranked third this time, and could only sit on the sidelines to watch the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire and J-Drop Majestic Empire contend for the first place. Zhong Hai's manner of attaining victory drew forth a lot of hissing sounds from the spectators. Beauties originally would attract more spectators anyways. Now, everyone naturally had sided and was in support of Yuronger. They were all too eager to boo Zhong Hai off the platform. But Zhong Hai's face was as thick-skinned as his tortoise shell, and he stood on the platform without any traces of shame. Instead, he turned towards Ling Han and hooked a finger at him, a downright provoking stance. Senior brother Ling, eliminate him. Those from the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire were all furious was too cocky. Ling Han smiled faintly, slowly walked to the front of the platform, and ascended the stairs, appearing to be unhurried and calm to the extreme. Hurry up. After defeating you, we shall be number one, Zhong Hai said arrogantly. Ling Han did not hasten, nor did he slow down. His spirit was firm. How would he be confused by others? He stepped onto the platform and greeted perfunctorily, Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, Ling Han. J-Drop Majestic Empire, Zhong Hai. Please. Please. Similarly, right after the greetings were done and over with, Zhong Hai immediately revealed a hideous grin. Brandishing a fist, he charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han casually moved his hand in a slashing arc and drew out a flash of sword chi, effortlessly countering this fist. You do have some strength? Zhong Hai coldly sneered. His fist just now was merely to test the waters. His expression then showed focus, while his fists clenched tightly. The originally black and white of his eyes had now changed to a deathly white. Furious sea of fists, he roared, and abruptly his fists struck simultaneously. Immediately, sounds of waves erupted, and the shadow of a tidal wave appeared striking towards Ling Han. Battle prowess of 22 stars of shattering void tier, almost close to 23 stars, Ling Han assessed in his heart. But how much had his own battle prowess reached now? Go! He rushed out, striking forward with a palm. A golden brilliance surged forth, directly splitting open the tidal wave, and continued to strike towards Zhong Hai. A look of shock immediately crossed Zhong Hai's face. What exactly was this attack of his opponent, actually being able to so easily break through his furious sea of fists? He promptly turned around. This was to play the same old trick, taking advantage of his innate defense ability to get the upper hand. Hong! Ling Han's palm pressed onto the tortoise shell. Both figures were seemingly frozen in their positions, with only the flickering of the divine patterns on the tortoise shell seen. Blocked yet again? The audience were all disappointed. They were, of course, hoping that Ling Han could emerge victorious. Even for those of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, it was no different. Ka! A crisp and clear sound rang out, and a crack could actually be seen appearing on the tortoise shell. Next, it spread out akin to a spider's web, and in an instant already covered the whole tortoise shell. Then, piece by piece, it broke just like porcelain. Chapter 939, The Empress Summons. Chapter 939, The Empress Summons. It shattered. Tortoise, amongst normal creatures, was the synonym for powerful defense. Even a ferocious tiger or lion could do nothing against the shell of a tortoise. Moreover, after entering the level of demonic beast, the defenses of a tortoise were further enhanced. When a demonic beast cultivated to the highest level, it would be termed a divine beast, and its defenses were naturally even more incredible. Zhong Hai was born different, possessing a sliver of the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, Black Tortoise. This was reflected in his defense. She had a spot on his back that was a so-called God's territory. It was called so because only immortals would be able to break through his defenses. Looking at the platform, all the spectators were gaping with shock. There was even a considerable number of Mountain River Tier and Sun Moon Tier elites that were in disbelief. Ling Han was obviously only in the Shattering Void Tier, so how could his battle prowess be so powerful? On the high platform, the important personages of the J-Drop and Eternity Sky Majestic Empires even directed a probe at him. Had Ling Han borrowed aid from the power of the nation? But the disappointing fact was that there were no signs of external aid on Ling Han. Furthermore, on their national totem, those 9 mountain peaks, there was no existence of Ling Han's name. Without a name on the totem, he would not be able to draw on power of the nation. This was something everyone knew for a fact. An individual's own battle prowess could also be this strong. This surprised a great many higher-ups because Shattering Void Tier had not yet entered into immortal level and did not have too great an effect. Thus, even great geniuses only required themselves to achieve 20 stars of battle prowess. There was no need for them to be so stubborn and reach the maximum on this step. After all, the path of cultivation was really too long. Furthermore, no matter how much you perfected your cultivation of the Shattering Void Tier, how many more stars could you increase your own ability to match an opponent on a higher cultivation level than your own? In the Mountain River Tier and Sun Moon Tier, I, too, could perfect my cultivation, so wouldn't the boost to my battle prowess be even greater? It was precisely because the battles on immortal level were too difficult that raising cultivation levels was the best strategy. Pong, Zhong Hai fell off the tournament stage, releasing a harsh scream in agony. This tortoise shell was a part of his body, and now that it had been shattered by force, it naturally caused him heart-rending pain. But the way he had won earlier on was too underhanded, so when the masses saw his pitiful look now, they felt a kind of pleasure instead, feeling like their ire had been vented. The ranking has been decided. In this year's competition between the 3 majestic empires, the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire is in the first place, the J-Drop Majestic Empire in the second, and the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire is third. The 9th King's voice rang out from the high stage, announcing the final results. Ling Han, Yi Qingyun, and the other participants were all commended, and each received 100 true origin stones. This was quite a considerable wealth. They'd merely had to battle once, so this could be considered a hefty reward. Ling Han was just about to leave with the left minister when a palace maid caught up with them. She first bowed, and then said, "Under the command of Her Imperial Majesty, Ling Han is summoned for an audience." The left minister was slightly stunned, but then hurriedly and with utmost respect replied, "Yes." Xiang Qingyun, meanwhile, was about to go mad with jealousy. This lowlife from a small world had actually been summoned for an audience with the Empress. What kind of good fortune was that? Even he had only been able to look at the Empress from afar, and that was only because he was following the left minister. He prided himself over it, but now? This Shattering Void Tier brat was actually able to come into close contact with the Empress, instantly trampling all over his pride. He was regretful. Why had he brought Ling Han back with him at that time? It would have been better if he had just killed Ling Han directly. Wouldn't it have been all right just to establish a puppet emperor? But now, he could only regret, and did not dare to do anything else. The Empress wanted to see him, and you dared to stand in his way? Ling Han walked with that palace made into the depths of the palace. It was incomparably quiet here. Aside from the patrolling soldiers passing by, there was no one else. Of course, the soldiers were all female. They were all in small teams of 10, led by an elite who was at perfection of the Mountain River Tier. The team members were also all in the Mountain River Tier. However, afterwards, that palace maid brought Ling Han to the doors of a side palace hall. The doors were completely forged from a pink-colored crystal, which looked like a beautiful gemstone. "Reporting to your Imperial Majesty, Ling Han has been brought," the palace maid informed, kneeling at the doors. "Enter." A dignified voice was heard from within. Yet, there was still incomparable charm hidden in this voice, as sweet as honey. Anyone who heard this voice would feel incredibly at ease. The palace maid nodded at Ling Han and walked into the palace hall. Ling Han followed her in. He had keenly discovered that there was an imperial guard hidden behind every giant stone pillar, each as wide as 3 meters, and their aura was deep and immeasurable. At least they were not people he could sense clearly. There was a total of 18 such pillars, and they stretched all the way to the end of the palace hall. There was an imperial throne there, and seated high on this throne was a woman dressed in imperial robes. However, there was divine light flickering over her, so her exact features could not be clearly seen. Still, even though she was incredibly blurry, she had a bone-deep charm that would melt anyone's heart. The greatest beauty in the world? It was indeed a fully justified reputation. She was merely seated there, and there was an irresistible grace to her. Ling Han sighed, but still had to kneel on one knee, and said, "This Ling Han pays respects to your Imperial Majesty." She was an ultimate elite, standing at the perfection of the heavenly body tier. She herself could possibly be a 5-star genius, and added with power of the nation. Even if not in the Eternal River tier, she should at least be unmatchable in the heavenly body tier. Facing this kind of elite, respect was a must. When the eyes of the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire ran over him, Ling Han abruptly felt as if he had been seen through completely. It was as if in front of her, there were no secrets he could hide. "Coming from a small world, you have not had it easy," she said, her voice holding a tone of commendation. Ling Han suddenly felt ecstasy that rushed up to his head, but his heart immediately clenched. Why was it that with only a single compliment from her, he was filled with an impulse that he could die for her? The charisma of this Empress was really too frightening, wasn't it? She had obviously not used any kind of technique. It was only mere words, and added with her own personal beauty, and bearing her beauty was even blurred, it had enchanted him so deeply. It was no wonder that even the 2 emperors in the heavenly body tier were captivated by her. Indeed, this kind of charisma was really too hard to resist. "Thank you for your praise, your Imperial Majesty," Ling Han said solemnly, his gaze lowered, not daring to have a second look. This Empress was really a great source of calamity. Even compared with the charisma of Shui Yinyu and Zhu Xian, hers was far superior. At least, as far as Ling Han knew, the only one able to match, or even surpass, her in terms of bearing was only that previous mistress of the Rock Palace. However, the bearing of these 2 women was of completely different types. Although that person of the Rock Palace spoke gently, she was so elegant and distant that others would only feel reverence and admiration, and not dare to have any other wild thoughts. Yet though this Empress in front of him spoke aloofly, she was like a sweet poison, and would make one feel like he could not stop himself. He would be willing to become a moth flying into a flame, not regretting even unto death. This should be related to the cultivation technique that this Empress had cultivated. Otherwise, it would definitely be impossible that she would be so enchanting and captivating with her grace. Ling Han did not think that he would be able to resist this Empress's charisma for much longer with his present cultivation. Thus, it was best for him not to look, avoiding falling head over heels into her unwitting trap, rendered incapable of freeing himself again. "You have saved our empire from a crisis, and won 1,000 slots to enter into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. Thus, I shall make an exception and gift you an entry slot," the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire said. "Thank you, your Imperial Majesty." This reward was within Ling Han's expectations. Furthermore, would such an important personage like the Empress summon him deliberately just to personally announce this piece of news to him? It seemed like the battle prowess that he had exhibited was too astonishing, and even the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire wanted to see him from up close. Chapter 940, A Long History. Chapter 940, A Long History. After exiting the imperial palace, Ling Han's mind was still completely filled with that alluring figure of the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire. She was really a super calamity. Initially, Ling Han would occasionally think of his parents, the beauties, his friends, and his son, but now all he could think of was the appearance of the Empress. Furthermore, he had obviously never even seen the true appearance of this Empress, yet had managed to imagine an incredibly attractive, beautiful face. It was like a combination of all the beautiful women that he had met, with all their merits put together, piecing together a beautiful face that one could find no flaw in. It was like a voice inside his heart was telling Ling Han that this Empress should be the most beautiful woman in this world. This was disastrous, really disastrous. Ling Han contemplated inwardly the indestructible heaven scroll, and only after a long while did he manage to erase the figure of the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire from his mind. Yet in his heart, a feeling of longing rose up, causing him to shake his head. That he would actually be so captivated. It was practically as if he had been bewitched. The chaotic star's majestic empire won the first place this time round, and thus attained 1,000 slots for entering into the heavenly sea mystery realm, whereas the other two great majestic empires would each have 500 slots. 1,000 entry slots seemed like a lot, but in truth, it was absolutely not enough to share. Who did not desire a slot? Mountain River Stone, for any mountain river tier cultivator, was greatly beneficial. Not only could it help boost cultivation level, it could also give an individual a unique skill. For shattering void tier cultivators, that was even more valuable. They could skip the step of comprehension and directly form their mountains and rivers to advance into this cultivation level. However, if one depended on Mountain River Stone to break through, the limit would be the peak of the lower levels of Mountain River Stone. Unless he could make a breakthrough himself on martial arts, he could only remain in this level forever. The heavens were naturally just. For these entry slots, everyone was practically about to come to blows. Because the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire had no children, she only took a few slots and handed them over to the 9th king, so she could enter into the heavenly sea mystery realm and train. Aside from her, there were also a few guards entering to ensure her safety. As for the remaining entry slots, she handed them to the left and right ministers, and the 7 great generals to distribute them to those worthy. The 9 kings' status was above the courts. Although their authority was superior to the left and right ministers and the 7 great generals, their priority only lay in cultivation. They had never interfered in matters of the imperial court. This was also a reason why the left minister and the other higher-ups were willing to yield to their superior authority. The imperial capital would definitely be bustling in these few days, as the various clans would be running around for their own people. That was Mountain River Stone, and they could nurture outstanding heirs with it. In any case, Ling Han had already gained an entry slot. That was something personally bestowed on him by the Empress, and no one could possibly snatch it from him. Thus, he calmly returned to the academy. He had initially wanted to immediately seek out Shui Yinyu to ask her about matters concerning the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, but just when he had that thought, he realized that he did not know where Shui Yinyu was in the academy, and so could not help but smile. Then he just asked another person. Ling Han sought out Lin Yu. The latter came from a noble background, and was known for being just, so there was naturally no problem just to ask him a few questions. Lin Yu was very cordial, and when he knew why Ling Han had come, he told Ling Han all the information he knew about the resources in the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. The history of this mystery realm was far longer than the history of the chaotic star's majestic empire. The inheritance of the J-Drop and Eternity Sky majestic empires could be numbered in hundreds of millions of years. At the time, the competition was actually only between these two great majestic empires, until finally, about 1 million years ago, the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire came into being suddenly. Walking out from a small country, battling step by step, she finally formed the current balance of power between the 3 empires. However, the origin of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm was even earlier than the 2 great majestic empires of J-Drop and Eternity Sky. before these two great nations were established, or perhaps when the joint peace planet was still in that ancient era, this mystery realm had already existed. Hence, no one knew the origins of this mystery realm. The only thing known was that there were mountain river stones inside, and there were some in the most precious category. Unfortunately, one could not recultivate mountain river tier once he had broken through. Otherwise, this mystery realm would be even more important. The entrance to this mystery realm would only open for half a day. After about 2,000 people had entered, it would have reached its limit. If more entered, they would directly be killed. As for the question of how long one could stay in the mystery realm, it was indefinite. Sometimes it would only be half a month, and sometimes it would be half a year. This mystery realm imposed a limit on the maximum cultivation level, but had no limit on the minimum cultivation level. It could only accommodate cultivators in the lower levels of mountain river tier and below, and should anyone with a higher cultivation level, they would be torn to pieces. Even heavenly body tier elites were no exception. Thus, some have deduced that this mystery realm had to be the creation of an ultimate elite of the Genesis tier. Otherwise, how could there possibly appear such extremely valuable treasures like the mountain river stone? In the next few days, the imperial capital was indeed flaring up over these 1,000 entry slots. Clans with even the slightest bit of power were all running around, delivering gifts to the residences of the left and right ministers, as well as the 7 great generals, so that they could gain an entry slot. Because those in the lower levels of the mountain river tier could also enter, naturally not much attention was paid to Ling Han. In the shattering void tier, he could be considered invincible, but in the mountain river tier, any mountain river tier cultivator would be able to dominate him easily. However, Shui Yinyu absolutely disagreed with this. She was speaking from experience, and clearly knew how terrifying Ling Han's physique could be. In the Scarlet Heaven Academy, a few of the higher-ranked mountain river tier elites were chased after by the various forces. There were some that obviously came from humble backgrounds, without any powerful backer, yet unexpectedly gained the qualification to enter. An example was someone called Tang Fei. He was the #1 genius in the lower levels of the mountain river tier at the Northern Institution. He was a commoner, yet had been selected personally by the Lord Left Minister this time, and could enter into the Heavenly Sea mystery realm. His purpose was naturally for the sake of protecting Li Weiwei. This was very lavish, but the Left Minister did not care. He only had 4 daughters, and this youngest daughter of his was favorite. For the sake of ensuring his beloved daughter could have a fated opportunity, as well as guaranteeing her safety, what did the mere sacrifice of a single entry slot count as? After preparing for 7 days, the 1,000 people to enter the Heavenly Sea mystery realm were confirmed. These people all boarded a luxurious warship, which flew towards their destination. This was where the borders of the 3 nations crossed. It was a desolate plain, which Ling Han thought was odd. There was a sea in the name of the Heavenly Sea mystery realm, so what about the sea? Where was it? The people from the other 2 great majestic empires had arrived as well. They had also arrived via a warship. Otherwise, even in the case of the mountain river tier cultivators, the journey on foot would take months. The leader of the team from the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire was one of the 7 great generals, Dinglian. He was also the only one of the 7 great generals that had not married and had children yet. Apparently, this great general was desperately in love with the Empress of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, and thus vowed to never marry. However, it was obviously an unrequited love, and he was destined to remain single for the rest of his life. Since he was single, the only thing left for him was cultivation. As a result, Dinglian's cultivation level was very high. He had already attained the peak of the lower levels of the heavenly body tier, and he himself was a 4-star genius, so he could match an ordinary cultivator in the middle levels of the heavenly body tier. The other 2 great majestic empires had also sent a similar heavyweights, appearing to be very serious about this. After all, those that entered into the mystery realm were either the descendants of important people of their respective majestic empires or prodigious geniuses. There was absolutely no room for failure. Shui Yinyu, Ji Yuner, Lin Yu, Yi Qingyun, and the others had also gained the qualification to enter with the power of their respective clans. However, though Ma Xing had extraordinary talent, he did not gain the chance to enter because he did not have any important background. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that the Empress had allowed Ling Han to enter with a personal imperial decree, he might not have been able to get this one entry slot, either. The reality was just that cruel. Chapter 941. It's still Ling Han that has an unyielding character. Chapter 941. It's still Ling Han that has an unyielding character. Ling Han's eyes swept over the people assembled, and saw that many were looking at him with sneers on their faces, not hiding their killing intent in the least. There were the senior brother and senior sister disciples from the Western institution, the members of the Luo clan, and the subordinates of Zhao Luan, and they were all in the low extreme of the mountain river tier. They were staring at Ling Han as if they were looking at a vulnerable lamb, their eyes filled with cruelty and heartlessness. At first, Ling Han would not know so many people, but Lin Yu was standing beside him and introduced them to him one after another, so he had some idea inside his head. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm did not merely possess fateful opportunities, but also endless danger. Hence, it was absolutely normal for a number of people to die within, and it was absolutely impossible to find out who the culprits were. A mystery realm had always been the best location to settle personal grudges. If you were afraid to die, then you could only choose not to enter. Fateful opportunities had always been accompanied by danger. Ling Han looked at these people, sneering inwardly. Even without the Black Tower, with how tough his present physique was now, it was not the slightest bit inferior to level 1 godly metal, and could absolutely take the attack of any cultivator at the peak of the low extreme of mountain river tier head-on. Moreover, he still had the 7-kill subduing soul technique. It was still indefinite who would be the hunter and who would be the prey. Additionally, he had also attained breakthrough level improvement on his 6 techniques return to 1. The only thing he lacked now was time, and as soon as he reached 20 stars of strength, he would be able to break through. When he advanced into the mountain river tier, it would be he who would be sweeping aside all opposition. True, he did not possess any immortal level cultivation techniques, but don't forget, there were still mountain river stones that could help him directly form his mountains and rivers inside the mystery realm, though he would only be limited to the peak of the low extreme. However, those that could enter here were limited to the peak of the low extreme, so if it was a battle between equals, whom would Ling Han be afraid of? When these people looked coldly over him, Ling Han returned their looks with a chilling look of his own, not cowering in the slightest. Shui Yinyu felt a headache coming on. How could she have imagined that Ling Han was such a magnet for trouble? It was not enough for him to have a great enemy like Zhao Luan. He'd actually made an enemy of the Western institution as well as the Luo clan. She didn't know whether to be angry about how he lacked a sense of propriety or admire how courageous Ling Han was. Li Weiwei had also come over, pulling Ji Yuner with her, chattering continuously by Ling Han's ear, and completely ignoring the fact that the top elite of the low extreme of the mountain river tier division of the Northern Institution was standing next to her, which made Tang Feng the said elite have a very ugly look on his face. Tang Feng was presently 277 years old, had the cultivation of the peak of the low extreme of the mountain river tier, and was honored as the top elite of the low extreme division of the Northern Institution. Merely this identity had made who knew how many beautiful senior sister and junior sister disciples throw themselves at him, recommending themselves for a position in his bed. However, he could be considered a self-disciplined person and did not lose himself in lust, though he would occasionally let himself loose had not married, and faced with temptations that delivered themselves up to his doors. How much resistance could he actually have? But this time, being assigned such a big task by the left minister, a very great ambition suddenly rose within him. He wanted to become the son-in-law of the left minister. The time they would spend in the mystery realm would be half a month at least, and half a year at most. Furthermore, there were many dangers within, and he and Li Weiwei would be all alone by themselves. After spending all that time together, wouldn't familiarity breed fondness? Moreover, in the face of danger, women were the most vulnerable. When she saw how mighty and majestic he was, she would definitely not be able to stop herself from falling in love with him. He had most ideal thoughts, but who would have expected that Li Weiwei had completely not taken him to heart, and was completely treating him like a servant to be ordered around? She had not even looked directly at him, which depressed him very much. If it was to be claimed that the daughter of the left minister was proud by nature, that was fine. But Li Weiwei was actually all smiles and cheerful around a lowlife from a small world, completely defenseless. She was practically treating him like a friend. So how could Tang Feng be able to accept this? He was the mighty top elite of the low extreme division. Could it be that he could not even match a lowlife from a small world? Tang Feng's expression was as dark as water. He inwardly decided that they had to separate from Ling Han after entering the mystery realm. Although he had never entered into the heavenly sea mystery realm, for the sake of his beloved daughter, the left minister had given him a jade scroll, and there was incredibly complete and accurate information about the heavenly sea mystery realm written within, so he was very confident. As the saying went, 3 women made a market and 4 a fair. With Li Weiwei chattering endlessly, she led Ji Yuner and Shui Yinyu to both speak a few words here and there, which gave Ling Han no chance to speak at all. Thus, he took a step back and began conversing with Lin Yu. "Senior brother Ling, why don't you go with me later?" Lin Yu extended an invitation. "This time, our Lin clan has obtained a total of 3 entry slots. Aside from myself, the other 2 clansmen are both elites in the low extreme of Mountain River tier." He had long heard that Lin Yu was a just person and could sacrifice himself for his friends. Merely hearing these words for him, he knew that his reputation was justified. Lin Yu could tell that Ling Han could possibly be hunted down, and thus had cordially invited him along. Ling Han could not help but smile and said, "Thank you for your kindness, junior brother Lin. However, I am still used to being alone." Lin Yu took one look at Shui Yinyu and believed himself to have understood the situation. Thus, he said, "I have forgotten that senior brother Ling still has a beautiful, captivating senior sister as company. However, senior sister Shui has just advanced into the Mountain River tier, so if you met an opponent in the later stage of low extreme of the Mountain River tier, or perhaps even the peak, I fear she will not be a match for them." Shui Yinyu was very talented in martial arts and was a 2-star genius. How could there be anyone ordinary among those who could enter into the mystery realm? Besides, those that had advanced into the Mountain River tier were all 1-star geniuses at the very least. Thus, Shui Yinyu would at most be able to match an opponent in the middle stage of low extreme. She would definitely be no match for someone stronger. Ling Han clapped a hand on Lin Yu's shoulder and said, "I understand. However, I will be fine. When the time comes, it will not be definite who is the hunter and who is the prey." Seeing the powerful confidence Ling Han exuded, Lin Yu could not help but choose to believe him. "Ling Han." A pleasantly surprised voice rang out, and they saw the 9th king holding up her skirts as she walked quickly towards them. Her status was too noble, so all those belonging to the chaotic star's majestic empire knelt. As she walked past, the people on either side knelt down, and only when she passed did they stand up once more, forming a wave-like movement. Ling Han was surprised. Why was this 9th king suddenly calling out to him? He had barely finished the thought when the 9th king already ran to stand in front of him. Lin Yu hurriedly knelt on one knee, paying his respects. "Rise, rise." The 9th king lifted her hand. Her face as beautiful as a flower, she complimented, "Ling Han, you're better than others, who look like they have soft bones, and immediately kneel down when they see me." Pooh! Those standing close enough to hear her almost threw up blood. This was their respect, all right? Her Imperial Majesty had already declared that seeing the 9 kings was equivalent to seeing her Imperial Majesty. Just tell us, who would dare not to pay respects to you? Ling Han was obviously acting treasonous, refusing to kneel in the face of one of the 9 kings, and in your eyes, he had actually become one with an unyielding character? Ling Han merely clasped his hands in greeting and said, "My respects to the 9th king." There were 3 female guards following behind the 9th king, and they were all at the peak of the low extreme of the Mountain River tier. When they saw Ling Han's lack of respect, they immediately frowned and glared at him angrily. "I have especially allowed Ling Han not to kneel down to pay his respects," the 9th king said hurriedly so that her 3 guards would not flip out. When they heard the words of the 9th king, The 3 female guards could only close their mouths obediently. Seeing the 9 kings was equivalent to seeing the Empress. This was applicable to them as well, so how could they possibly dare to disobey? Ling Han, this time, it's all thanks to you that big sister praised me very much. The 9th king was all smiles. Drawing out a pill bottle, she handed it over to Ling Han. This is a Jade Sun pill, which has the effect of boosting cultivation by about a year. It's my gift to you. Chapter 942. A gift from the 9th king. Chapter 942. A gift from the 9th king. The 9th king actually gave a gift to a man in public. This practically caused the eyeballs of all the people from the chaotic star's majestic empire to pop out of their sockets in shock. They only knew how inconceivable and unacceptable this scene was. Aside from the 9th king, who had appeared not many years ago, the other 8 kings had all respectively joined the imperial court and been bestowed the title of king in the last 1,000,000 years. In truth, they had not made any bit of contribution to the empire, and it was all the decision of the Empress who bestowed the title upon them. Yet facts had proven that the Empress truly had a keen eye. After a long time, the 8 kings had all advanced into the heavenly body tier, though none knew exactly what level they had reached. Hence, when the 9th king appeared, the citizens all naturally thought that it would not take too many centuries before this important person would also become a great elite of the heavenly body tier. However, the other 8 kings and the Empress all shared a common point, and that was being aloof to men and maintaining a distance from them. So, in everyone's head, the 9th king should be no different. Thus, when they saw the 9th king personally come over to deliver a gift of an alchemical pill, it was naturally so astonishing that they were gaping with shock. No matter how much they puzzled over it, they could not believe it was possible. Ling Han accepted the pill bottle, smiled, and said, "Thank you, 9th king." He, on the other hand, was clear that the 9th king was innocent and naive, simple to the extreme and without any schemes in her head at all. She did not have any romantic thoughts, either, and it was completely because he had helped the chaotic star's majestic empire get the first place, which allowed the 9th king to be praised by the Empress. Now that she was happy, she wanted to express her gratitude. It was that simple. "All right, you'd better not die inside. We'll see each other later." The 9th king waved, and, holding up her skirts, raced off again. Lin Yu's mouth was open wide enough for a fist to fit inside. After a long time, he finally punched Ling Han's chest playfully and teased, "Awesome guy. Never thought that you managed to conquer the 9th king, let alone without any previous sigs at all. Hiss, this time, probably no one would dare to make a move against you now." The 9th king represented the will of the Empress, so if she favored Ling Han, who would dare make a move against him? Ling Han merely smiled, though he was shaking his head internally. How could things be as simple as that? Who would be able to find out who the culprit was after someone was killed in a mystery realm? How could the 9th king possibly kill them all? If something happened to the 9th king, perhaps the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire would really massacre all those who entered to calm her rage, but she would definitely not go so far for him. To speak more crudely, who did he think he was? Ling Han put away the pill bottle. The Jade Sun pill could save cultivators a year's time of cultivation. It was negligible for any immortal who had a very long lifespan, but for him, it was extremely useful. Perhaps he would be able to reach the maximum limit of strength of 20 stars after he had refined this alchemical pill. He had nothing to do anyways, so he simply chose to consume the pill directly and refine it here and now. Who would dare make a move against him now? In front of the eyes of so many, Ling Han was the safest. Anyone that dared to make a move now would be publicly declaring themselves an enemy of the 9th king, and he believed that even the left and right ministers and the 7 great generals would never dare to do such a thing. Shui Yinyu could only watch with a muscle twitching in her cheek, stunned by how outrageously bold this man could be. Ling Han consumed the alchemical pill and immediately circulated the 6 techniques return to 1 to absorb the medicinal effects inside the pill. Spiritual chi from the heavens and earth abruptly surged over in waves, almost becoming solid and wrapped around Ling Han. A spirit base that had 6 alignments absorbed spiritual chi that had 6 alignments and became 6 pillars of chi, their various colors vibrant and bright. When they saw these pillars of chi, quite a number of people was moved. What is there to be so amazed about? Isn't it just stimulating spiritual chi? Someone said in a disdainful tone. There is nothing amazing about being able to stimulate spiritual chi that has 6 different alignments at the same time. Even for someone that does not possess a natural spirit base, they could forge one out afterwards to create a perfect spirit base that has perfectly balanced 6 different alignments. But the problem here is, how could these pillars of spiritual chi be so wide? This is extremely astonishing. When I was in the Shattering Void tier, the pillars of spiritual chi that I stimulated were only 1/100th of the width of his at most. Being thus reminded, whether it was those in the Shattering Void tier or those in the Mountain River tier, they all looked stunned. No wonder this person was absolutely invincible in the Shattering Void tier. He had indeed cultivated Shattering Void tier to a practically perfect level. TSK, he is just invincible in the Shattering Void tier. Once he enters into the Mountain River tier, he'll be trash. That's right. He has only just climbed up to the 8th floor and is just a 4-star genius. Even a 2-star genius, once he has reached the peak of low extreme of the Mountain River tier, would be able to dominate him easily. Some spoke in envious tones, but once they had said such words, even they themselves could not help but be dumbfounded. Just barely entered into the low extreme of Mountain River tier, and he would have battle prowess to match someone in the early stage of medium extreme of Mountain River tier? How astonishing was that? Just a 4-star genius? Did you know how many 4-star geniuses there were in total in the whole Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire? And you dared to use the word just. He only has the potential to become a 4-star genius. It's not set in stone. In the end, those people justified their words. Ling Han would naturally not take this idle gossip to heart. Under the effects of the alchemical pill, the spiritual chi formed pillars and surged madly into his body, endlessly transforming into his origin power. His strength was rapidly improving, charging towards the maximum limit of 20 stars. Because he had been cultivating the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art all this while, added with the wealth of resources in the immortal realm, he, a mere Shattering Void tier cultivator, naturally reached the peak of his body arts very soon, and the only thing he lacked was the level of origin power. In truth, with how rich the resources were in the immortal realm, they could easily send a cultivator up to the level of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier of strength, but the problem was whether you personally would be able to bear this kind of strength. If your Dantian was not big enough, and your spiritual sea not wide enough, how could you be able to accommodate so much origin power? You would only be stuffed to the point of exploding. This was like a man who was obviously filthy rich, yet he was ill, so he could not eat scrumptious delicacies, and could not touch his beautiful wife. What meaning was there in having this kind of wealth? Ling Han cultivated the 6 techniques returned to 1 to open the final door and become capable of accommodating the maximum of 20 stars of strength. When he came to this understanding, the only thing he lacked was time to fill him up. Now that the 9th king had gifted him a Jade Sun pill, it just happened to fill in for this shortcoming of his. Only after a day did Ling Han stop, his eyes snapping open as a smile pulled up the corners of his lips. Shui Yinyu was astonished. When you looked at me, I actually felt as if I was afraid to look you in the eye. Ling Han gave a laugh and teased, "That'd be natural. Don't you know that the husband's duty is to guide the wife, so it is natural that you would fear me?" Shui Yinyu mercilessly rolled her eyes at him, but was still extremely surprised. One had to know that she was in the Mountain River tier, yet she was actually scared by the gaze of a minor cultivator in the Shattering Void tier. What kind of logic was that? Her heart tensed up suddenly, and she felt breathless. She asked, could it be that you have pushed your strength up to 20 stars? Clever, as expected of my wife. Ling Han praised. Strength of 20 stars. Shui Yinyu's whole head was filled with these words. She was so stunned that she forgot to criticize the way Ling Han was taking liberties with her. She knew that Ling Han would definitely be able to reach strength of 20 stars of shattering void tier one day, but she had never imagined that it would have happened so quickly. She stared at Ling Han with eyes filled with astonishment. This man would perhaps one day become a miracle that all others could only look up to and admire. Chapter 943, Divine Metal. Chapter 943, Divine Metal. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm is about to open, someone called out, and everyone turned their heads to look skywards. Ling Han could not help but turn to look at the sky as well, and saw that the previous sky that had been clear and sunny had, in a mere instant, actually been torn open, revealing a colossal sea. The width was unknown, but the waves were fierce. There was a frightening divine sense interwoven within, and a mere look would scare one witless. Hong, long, long. The desolate plain ahead of them also split open as well, revealing a huge tunnel. All of a sudden, a pillar of water shot up into the sky, forming a waterfall that was flowing backward towards the sky. The waterfall was flowing upside down into the sky and connected with that sea in the sky. Suddenly, endless waves surged in the opposite direction upwards into the sky. The sound of the waves boomed like thunder, suppressing all other sounds. At this time, even if someone tried their utter best, he would not be able to hear what he himself was saying at all. Ling Han looked on with shock. This was too grand. There was a great sea floating in the sky, and it was so wide that it seemed like it could crush the entire Joint Peace planet if it flowed downwards. Furthermore, the water underground was actually gushing in the opposite direction into the sky, completely going against natural laws. He finally found out why this mystery realm was known as the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. A sea in the heavens it was not just in name, but rather the actual reality. Everyone could only use their divine sense to communicate now as their hearing was completely disabled. They could only hear that endless thunder produced by the waves. That would be the Heavenly Sea. No one can fly above to get a clear look at it. There are no living beings inside that huge sea, and there is no end either, Lin Yu mused ruefully. There was once an elite of the heavenly body tier that steered a galaxy-level warship and entered within, but as a wave broke over him, the warship turned into pieces, and that elite did not even manage to flee with his spirit in time. He was crushed along with his physical body. The heavenly body tier, on the Joint Peace planet, was synonym for invincible, but even heavenly body tier cultivators ended in that manner, so that sea in the sky naturally became a forbidden area. Look, there's something. Someone pointed at that waterfall that connected the heavens and earth. Ling Han focused his gaze and looked over. There was a white-colored object flickering in the waterfall, but he could not exactly distinguish what it was. This was extremely shocking. A waterfall flowing upside down was in itself a very bizarre happening, but now, in the heavenly sea, there was actually an object that was going against the water flow and floating down the waterfall, which was an even more unacceptable fact to them. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and could finally make out the rough features of that white object. It's a piece of metal. A white-colored metal. Heavens, the waves there could easily crush a galaxy-level warship and kill an elite of the heavenly body tier. But now there is actually a piece of metal that is still completely preserved. That metal must be extraordinarily heavy. How else could it possibly flow down the waterfall, going against the flow of the water? A top-grade godly metal. It must be a top-grade godly metal, which can be forged into the strongest spirit tool in this world. It could even block the destructive power of the heavenly sea. Is there any force capable of destroying it in this world? A few important people all exclaimed in surprise. They were all elites of the heavenly body tier, and as something that could move even them, the value of this piece of godly metal could be imagined. In that moment, everyone's eyes became fiery. One had to know that if this piece of godly metal fell down, where would it fall to? Into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. That was right. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm was not that piece of sea in the sky, where even if an elite of the heavenly body tier entered, he would be directly eliminated. If they went there, wouldn't they just be heading to their deaths? The Mystery Realm was under the ground, and only when the Heavenly Sea appeared would this Mystery Realm appear as well. Otherwise, even if you dug through the entire Joint Peace Planet, don't even think you would be able to find it. Ling Han also felt a rush of excitement. Top-grade godly metal. Who would not want such a treasure? Moreover, others might not be able to mold this type of godly metal, but he had the Black Tower, so he should be able to, right? He could not help but ask, Small Tower, could you do it? I haven't seen it, so how would I know? Small Tower humphed. However, as long as it is godly metal, it would be a piece of cake. Ling Han caught the implication of its words and asked, so there is something that is even tougher than godly metal, and even you would not be able to refine it? Of course. Think, what material has the Black Tower been forged from? Small Tower said in a thunderous tone. What was it forged from? Ling Han continued to ask. He was indeed very curious. Divine metal. This time, Small Tower did not give an excuse like, your cultivation level is too low, so telling you would be pointless. Above godly metal, there is divine metal. However, godly metal is divided into many grades, and though there are many different types of divine metal, there is only one grade. It either is divine metal, or it is not. Every piece of divine metal has its own unique consciousness and possesses incredible might. According to legends, we'll speak more on this subject when you actually get a piece. Small Tower was beginning to keep him in suspense again. When they were speaking, that piece of white-colored metal had already glided into the ground. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm is already open. Go in quickly. If you are not entering now, what are you waiting for? You must get that piece of godly metal. Whoever can obtain that piece of godly metal for me will be heavily rewarded. The important people all spoke up, urging the masses to descend. At the same time, they were offering amazing rewards to obtain that piece of top-grade godly metal. There was nothing else that could be done. They could not enter into the mystery realm, and so could only place their hopes on these youngsters. One could foresee that there would definitely be a fierce battle full of bloodshed that would be caused by this piece of godly metal. Let's go. Ling Han tugged on Shui Yinyu's hand. If they did not enter at the same time, they would appear in different locations when they entered into the mystery realm. Blockhead, wait for me. Li Weiwei hurriedly chased after them. Fourth young miss. Yet Tang Feng stepped out to stand in her way. He still wanted to be alone with Li Weiwei, so he was naturally hoping there would not be a third wheel with them. Damn it! Li Weiwei stretched out a hand in a palm strike. It was naturally impossible for her battle prowess to pose any threat to Tang Feng, but when she delivered her palm strike, a beaded bracelet she was wearing on her wrist exuded brilliant light. Pong! Tang Feng was suddenly sent flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. A god tool! Tang Feng exclaimed in his heart. Moreover, it was no ordinary god tool. Otherwise, a shattering void tier cultivator would definitely be unable to activate it. It should have been refined multiple times by the left minister, and because of their blood relation, Li Weiwei was capable of activating the power hidden within. Ling Han grabbed a hold of Shui Yinyu's hand. Hong! The sound of the water was thunderous, ringing out in his ears. The waves here were very huge, but there were no divine patterns interwoven with them. Thus, even if they broke over shattering void tier cultivators, they would not die. However, if they did not have enough ability, they would still be throwing up blood like crazy. More importantly, the waves of water went against the natural flow and were going upwards, yet the mystery realm was at the very bottom. Hence, they had to overcome this opposite force, or they would not even be qualified to enter into the mystery realm. Ling Han exhibited his nature-defying trait as his strength of 20 stars exploded in a burst, and he moved against the flow as easily as if he was walking on flat land. Additionally, his physique was really too powerful, so when the waves slammed against him, the force he felt was no more than a massage. Your speed is too slow. Shui Yinyu sent him a mental message. You enter into your spatial god tool, and I will bring you in. Ling Han could not help but grin bitterly. How could he possibly show off the existence of the Black Tower? He usually hid it within his dantian, and when he hid inside, the Black Tower would shrink to the size of a mustard seed, not revealing the slightest sign of its existence. If he ducked inside, Shui Yinyu would not even be able to see him, so how was she supposed to bring him in? Ho-ho, since you are indeed powerful, then bring me along with you. In any case, my skin is tough and thick, so no matter how fast you go, this water flow would not be able to injure me. He could not possibly explain the uniqueness of the Black Tower to Shui Yinyu. Shui Yinyu turned right around to take hold of his wrist, and her figure abruptly sped up. Chapter 944, Taking the Lead to Enter. Chapter 944, Taking the Lead to Enter. It had to be admitted that aside from the fact that Ling Han had defenses that could match a cultivator in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, in other areas, he was still too far away from mountain river tier. With this effort exerted by Shui Yinyu, their speed abruptly increased over a dozen times. However, these waves seemed to possess different strength according to the different cultivation levels they had. Ling Han did not even feel a thing, while Shui Yinyu looked like she was struggling. Very soon, their speed slowed down. Let me. Ling Han took the initiative once more and advanced with Shui Yinyu in tow. In this way, Shui Yinyu merely had to use origin power to boost herself and increase her defenses, so the pressure on her was greatly reduced. Though Ling Han did not go very fast, every step he took was incredibly firm. Overall, he was actually not that much slower than Shui Yinyu. In his opinion, the impact of the water flow had reached 16 stars of shattering void tier. Thus, it would be extremely difficult even for an elite of 20 stars of shattering void tier to stand against these waves. After all, the water flowed endlessly, which was equivalent to the elite having to endure this kind of attack at all times. And there was no way he could fight back either. Furthermore, the power of the waves differed according to cultivation level. Otherwise, the great elites of the heavenly body tier could directly escort them to the real entrance. As he imagined, it would not be a problem of struggling if these great elites entered. There would be a chance that they would be directly crushed. Thus, the stronger one's battle prowess was on the same cultivation level, the more advantage he would have here. Ling Han's strength had reached 20 stars, and he had attained the true maximum limit of the shattering void tier. Added with his physique that was on the level of godly metal, he could be considered invincible in this place. Could he hide himself here to ambush others? Ling Han gave it some thought, but ultimately still gave up this tempting idea. The reason why there was so much bloodshed and massacre in the mystery realm was because there were no witnesses at all, and no one could prove anyone guilty. There might not even be a body left, so how could the murderer be found? Yet this place was different. Everyone had to pass through here, so if he did make a move, there would be too many witnesses. To kill a student of the academy or a descendant of a court official in public was a heavy crime in the chaotic star's majestic empire. Moreover, he might not be successful either. After all, they were all going into the mystery realm to hunt for treasures, so who would not be bringing some treasures that could save their lives? Ling Han shook his head and, holding onto Shui Yinyu's hand, continued ahead. Although he started later, he was faster and surpassed those ahead of them one after another. He was obviously not moving very fast, yet maintained an incredibly steady pace. On the way, even mountain river tier cultivators could only watch and did not dare make a move due to feeling humiliated by being surpassed. In here, the majority of their origin power had to be used to oppose the impact of the water, and if they split out some origin power to make a move, that was practically courting death. About 2 hours later, Ling Han finally brought Shui Yinyu to the bottom of the water, and a pair of doors appeared in front of them. That was a pair of stone doors as tall as 300 meters. There were various shapes of beasts carved on the doorposts, and Ling Han could not recognize most of them. However, he could feel as if these beast carvings were alive and exuding an endless, intimidating energy. They were obviously just carvings. Though he called them stone doors, it was actually just a stone entrance. On the door lintel, there was a stone dragon coiled above, vivid and lifelike as if it would struggle free of the door lintel and soar into the wilderness at any moment. Let's go. Ling Han felt much pity as he had not spotted that piece of godly metal at all on their way here. Otherwise, he would have been able to take it just by stretching his hand. The two of them entered the stone doors. They were drawn by a strange attraction, as if it could pull them into pieces at any moment. They hurriedly grabbed each other's hand tightly so that they would not be separated. Pong, pong. The two of them were tossed onto the ground at the same time. The surroundings had changed. They were no longer in an environment of water. Let go, Shui Yinyu rebuked, rolling her eyes exaggeratedly at Ling Han. Ling Han could not help but feel rueful inwardly. Before he had seen the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, he felt that every move that Shui Yinyu made was filled with allure. But now, though she was still as beautiful as before, compared with the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, she was missing an endless grace. He loosened his grip with a smile as per her words, and asked, "Now where should we go?" It was not the first time that Shui Yinyu had entered the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, but it was still only her second time here. She had come here 10 years ago, but if it was 20 years ago, she had still been too young, and her abilities were inadequate, so her clan did not dare to allow her to take risks. Before entering here, we would randomly appear in the surroundings of the Mystery Realm, and the further we go into the core area, the higher the chances that there would be mountain river stones nearby, Shui Yinyu explained. And there's also that piece of godly metal. This was constantly on Ling Han's mind. Even if that wasn't divine metal, to be able to withstand the force of the heavenly sea and remain undamaged, it had definitely surpassed the level of the heavenly body tier. At the very least, it would be a level 13 godly metal. Regarding this matter, Shui Yinyu could only shake her head in bafflement. Previously, there had never appeared a piece of godly metal that could actually go against the water flow and enter into the mystery realm. Who knew what corner it would be in right now? If it had fallen down randomly, then it could possibly be in any corner of the fringe of the mystery realm. We may not even have enough time to make a whole round. What more when there would be a higher chance that it would be picked up and taken away by someone else, she analyzed. That was very logical. Ling Han sighed. Then he could only hope that godly metal was different and would appear in the core area. He looked at the environment around them. This was a very strange place. All around them, it was a bright crimson. This was a plain, but there were hills, which had stone thorns piercing through the air, in the distance. A crimson fog was twining above them. They could not see through it, nor could their divine sense pass through. Ong! A beast's roar sounded from afar, so loud that even the ground itself was trembling. Innumerable pebbles bounced off the ground from the impact. This place was not a desolate area without life. On the contrary, a lot of the danger came from the native demonic beasts here. The majority of them was in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, but there were some that had reached the medium extreme, or even high extreme. When encountering a creature in the late stage, or even the peak of high extreme, even a 4-star genius would have to make a strategic retreat. Thankfully, it is similarly in the low extreme. Shui Yinyu scanned it for a moment and let out a sigh of relief. Then, she revealed a burning fighting spirit. We can try a fight. In this place, aside from mountain river stones, hunting demonic beasts was also a very important part. Without elaborating on anything else, the spiritual meat of a mortal-level demonic beast was very nutritious, though slightly inferior to some natural divine herbs, and had surpassed the majority of alchemical pills. However, there were too many cultivators. The demonic beasts on Joint Peace Planet had suffered overhunting, and now, one could possibly find demonic beasts only in the uninhabited regions of the wide mountains. But this kind of demonic beast would usually be incredibly powerful, so the chances that they would be countered and killed in return were even higher. The other option was the Mystery Realm, because there was a limited time that the Mystery Realm would be open, and there was also a limit on the number of cultivators that could enter, as well as on their cultivation level. They could not create fundamental damage to their population. Where there are demonic beasts, there usually are mountain river stones, Shui Yinyu continued. Ling Han was curious and asked, why do these demonic beasts not refine the mountain river stones? Probably because they can't, Shui Yinyu guessed. Aside from this reason, what other explanation could there be? Otherwise, with the passing of so many years, even if this whole place was scattered all over with mountain river stones, they would have been refined completely with none left. Ling Han nodded. He had presently reached the true maximum limit of the Shattering Void tier, and could break through to the Mountain River tier now. Hence, he very much needed these Mountain River stones to help him reach the top in a single step. The two of them walked in the direction they heard the roars of beasts coming from. In a short while, they saw that a huge rock had appeared in front of them. A demonic beast akin to a water buffalo was feasting there as it chewed on an 8-legged black deer. As if it had smelled Ling Han's and Shui Yinyu's scent, this demonic beast suddenly stood up and turned to look in their direction. There shockingly was a single silver horn growing on its forehead, exuding cold sheen of a metal. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.